On today's show, Kyrie lands in Dallas. WNBA free agency is running wild. We discussed the NBA All-Star game, and LeBron's about to pass Kareem. Lace him up and lock in. JWJ.
Well, hold up. Cut the music, man. It's been way too freaking long. We ain't got time for all this intro music mess. We are back in the building and we need to get right into it. Damn it. My dude Shane, man. How the hell are you, bro? Where you at?
We back for. I feel like we do this every time. So let's just go ahead and do it, man. I'm good. I'm good.
Look, man, it's been way too freaking long, man. Look, but for what it's worth, I mean, I guess we could say we have some good reason. I mean, I feel like the reason is the same every time. Life freaking happens, man. I'm recording from a new location. um, me and the wife, the kids, moved into a new house. We're still not even fully unpacked, man. It's a lot going on over here. I know you got a lot going on, but to grace of God, thankfully, we are here, we are back, and we're ready to get into it, man. Um, I don't even want to waste any time, honestly. Let's just go ahead and do it, man. First things first, I know we got to talk about the most recent news. I'm a little annoyed because of what it does for your team. Screw y'all in advance. But we gonna go. Yeah. I'm gonna go down to San Antonio and borrow some of their Spurs and shove them right up y'all's. Anyway, um, Shane, go ahead and fill us in, man. The last, I'm gonna say 72 hours or so have been quite eventful in the world of the NBA. I'm gonna let you take this one just because it involves your squad, and I'll come in with my rant afterwards. But fill us in, bro, man. What's going on down there in Texas?
Yeah. So we're recording this early Tuesday morning, late Monday night. Obviously Sunday, the big news broke. Kyrie Irving has been traded from the Brooklyn Nets to my Dallas Mavericks.
Whatever,
Now,
man.
now, it's funny because I think he had just requested a trade. What was that, Thursday or Friday?
I think it was Friday.
Friday, and Brooklyn, completely opposite of what they did in free agency. They didn't drag ass this time. They actually went ahead and uh, did what they do and moved Kyrie. Now, everybody and their mama thought that Kyrie was going to become a Laker. And the Lakers made an offer. They made the offer that many people had said they should go for Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, is the Russell Westbrook, the 2027, 2029 first round picks in exchange for Kyrie. From what I understand, they did make that offer. Brooklyn said no. Bunch of other teams inquired. Dallas was one of them, along with the Clippers, the Phoenix Suns. I want to say even Miami made an offer as well. Um, Dallas, Dallas was kind of a dark horse. I think it didn't surprise me when it came out that they would have interest. But it did surprise me that they actually, the front office was able to land Kyrie Irving.
I was shocked, bro.
It was surprising. I was actually we were actually in the Dairy Queen drive-through getting ready to get ice cream, and I'm waiting at the speaker, and I go through my phone and it drops. I get a notification from Hoops Hype on Instagram and it says Kyrie to Dallas. So uh as a Mavs fan, um I'm over the moon. I'm not negative about it like a lot of people have been. I'm not about to pretend like I'm this like moral holier than thou guy and like I give a damn about half that stuff y'all talking. All I'm saying is dude averages 27, 5 and 5, just made the All-Star team, and you about to put him with the best 23-year-old player in the entire world. So
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, while we're talking y'all, I guess I'll take the standpoint of y'all right now. You're absolutely right. He averages 27 a game when he wants to, and that's the problem. I mean, if you look at the way that teams are throwing contracts around, there's always the constant talk of, teams. They say that teams base contracts off of what we believe you can do and not what you've done. But I think we can both sit here and agree that in the case of Kyrie Irving, you can't constantly look at the side of what you can do and totally ignore the side of what you've done when it's cost him almost 50% of possible games played over the last 3 years.
Right. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect. But given where the Mavericks have been, this is huge. This is the biggest swing they have taken for a all-star caliber player that I can remember. I mean, when Dirk was in Dallas, they never really could reel in the big fish. They tried it with a ton of players. I mean, they tried to get Darren Williams there. They tried Dwight Howard. They tried all these players that have spurned them. Even DeAndre Jordan was taken hostage and not allowed to leave the Clippers. We ended up getting him later when he was already becoming washed anyway. So we never really were in that. I think the biggest name move I think we've been able to pull off in the last, 8 years was probably the Rajon Rondo trade. And we know how that went now.
And look at to be fair, look at that the same way. To me, that's and I agree with you that that's the biggest swing that was probably taken outside of this one. But let's look at it the exact same way. It was looked at based off what we had already seen from Rondo and not what the team thought that he could do. And that's where a lot of that disappointment came from. Like, I look at it like that's why I feel like I can understand when teams say that they're going to look at the possible future of a player. But at some point, a player reaches a certain age, and that's not always what you're going to do. Like, for example, if we look at what's been going on with Kyrie, and I don't want to be that negative guy. You and I had a conversation about this earlier. To me, it's not a matter. I don't believe that pointing out the things that have happened is being negative, because my question is, if I'm pointing out what's been done and I'm deemed negative, then at what point do we look at the reason that I'm talking about that stuff in the first place? So it's like, sure, there could be more on the horizon. And just like you said, that's where, swinging for the fence comes into play. But I also think it's unfair to deem a fan base or to deem anybody negative for pointing out things that have literally been in our face and expect us to ignore them moving forward because somebody's in a new location.
I just think with how, I'm not saying everything's been entirely negative, but I think a lot of there's a good segment of people in the media that are kind of choosing to take that road and kind of making that the main thing. And it's kind of hard to take away like the stuff that's happened from the player. I'm not asking to separate it. I just think it's part of it. I just don't think that should be the entire, conversation. I do think, granted, of the 52, 53 games the Nets have played, Kyrie's only been able to play 40. Now, I'm sure he's had some type of injury or whatever's going on with that. But it's like he still did enough to make the All-Star team. I'm not here to talk about, all the stuff that's happened, the suspension, all that stuff. We know what happened. We know the whole vaccination situation, all that stuff. But, I think the basketball fit of it is what intrigues me the most. Everybody knows the idea now about, what happened with the trade. Kyrie, along with Markieff Morris, came over to Dallas in exchange for former Net. Now he's reunited with the Nets in Brooklyn. Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, got to pour one out for him. First round pick in 2 seconds. I think, just if you're looking at it from a nuts and bolts basketball standpoint, Dallas upgraded in a position of need. Spencer Dinwiddie played really, really well for us this year. I think for the whole month of January, or at least February at this point. I mean, he was probably one of the highest scoring in terms of scoring average of Spencer Dinwiddie's career. He was playing really, really well. I think it hurts as a Mavs fan to see Dorian Finney-Smith go. I remember when he was an undrafted guy out of Florida and made the roster 6 years ago. And, for the first 5 years of his career, he was doing something that was unprecedented for a undrafted player. He improved his points per game average and his 3-point percentage in each of his first 5 seasons. He literally turned himself from a undrafted guy into a bona fide 3-and-D quality starter in the NBA. Now,
right,
I will say I can see where this trade happened, where you included Dorian. He did miss a bunch of games with an adductor strain. He was not playing well to start the year. His scoring average was down. He averaged 11 points a game last year. He wasn't even in double digit scoring this year. 3-point percentage has slipped a little bit. Obviously, last January, I think it was February, he signed a 4-year, $55 million extension. Kind of sucks that the first year that, after that extension is when he starts to show a decline. Now, granted, he's 29, but his game had kind of slipped a little bit. And I think if you're Dallas, it was right to kind of move off of that when you saw that first hint of regression, and Spencer Dinwiddie's value couldn't have been higher. From Brooklyn's standpoint, you get off of Kyrie, who's been a headache for you. He hasn't been available. One minute he wants to be traded, then he's playing, then he requested a trade, and they went ahead and pulled the trigger. From a basketball standpoint, the Mavericks wanted playmaking around Luka. Dinwiddie was adequate, but getting a Kyrie is huge. Just what he can do with the ball in his hands. He can score at all levels. Averages about 6 assists a game. He's easily the best player that Luka's ever played with. And I mean, we talked about in the offseason about Jalen Brunson and why, Dallas not re-signing him and how big of a move or, big of a miss that was in Dallas's part. As good as Jalen Brunson is, he's not Kyrie Irving. So,
yeah, but see, my counter to that, and that goes right back to what we were discussing earlier today. How old is Jalen Brunson?
So Jalen Brunson, I think, is 24, 5?
Okay.
Right.
So we'll even take the high end, and we'll say 25. We can look it up and correct that later during the podcast. That's the JWJ podcast. You can find us on Spotify. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're actually okay with Twitter temporarily, but we'll get to that later on as well. You can find us on Overcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. People, we're everywhere.
We out here.
Yeah, we out here, bruh. But
so JB's 26.
Okay, so he's 26. Now, we look at him at 26, and we saw what he did last season in Dallas, and we saw it as a little bit of like a coming out party, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side of that, when I argue about the whole like potential versus what we've seen, we look at Kyrie. Kyrie's 30 years old right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we can look back and correct me if I'm wrong on the math, but in the time since Kyrie has gotten from the time from when he got to Brooklyn to when he was traded to Dallas, there was a potential of 289 regular season games. We're just going to look at regular season, right?
Mm-hmm.
He missed more games than he played. So I find it almost laughable that we're going to look at it as, oh, there's so much potential, when literally since LeBron left this man in Cleveland, it's been nothing but Kyrie missing. Yeah, when he shows up, he's been a hell of a player. I need to point out that key phrase again: when he shows up. It's, to me, it's not unfair to spotlight the fact that as good as you are, we always come back to that whole phrase of the best ability is availability. It doesn't matter how good you can average, 50 points a night, but if you only play 20 games a year, so what? And that's the only thing. I'm not even going to say it annoys me, but that's the only reason why, at the end of the day, Kyrie didn't end up a Laker. Okay, that's cool, because there's still those question marks. So it's, to me, I'm never going to knock Kyrie talent wise. I'm 100% with you. He is arguably one of, if not the best point guard on this planet. However, you don't do me any good if you're not on the court in uniform. And since 2019 in Brooklyn, you spent more time in street clothes than you did in a black and white jersey. So I think it's very fair for detractors to wonder what's going to happen in Dallas, because we saw it in Brooklyn. We saw it in Boston. We also even saw it in Cleveland after LeBron was gone. So people can only base it off what they've seen. You project based off what you've seen, i.e. Jalen Brunson. And that's coming to fruition. But if we look at it the same way that we did with Jalen Brunson, yeah, we've seen Kyrie do some awesome things. But we can't sit here and constantly spotlight all of the good that he does on the court and ignore the fact that he spent so much time off of it for whatever reason. If it was strictly injury that caused him to miss time, we'd be like, oh, he's always hurt. Like, case in point, a guy like Anthony Davis.
Right.
If we look at something like that and we're like, oh man, he puts up MVP numbers, but he's always hurt, he's always missing time, then we would look at the fact that he's missing time and we would use that against him. So why is it different for Kyrie? Because he's missing time due to personal interests and or like civil rights type things. I'm not, in no way am I knocking him for that, because I love what he's doing. I totally respect what he's doing. And I love that that kind of attention is being paid by the NBA right now. But at the end of the day, that's still a thing. It's like, I respect what you're doing. But at the end of the day, if we're going to make it about basketball and you're paid to play basketball, you're getting paid and you're not doing it. You're bringing attention to other important issues, and that's very commendable. But you're not doing what you get paid to do. And then you turn around and look at Brooklyn and you're mad that they don't want to pay you more. Can you blame them?
Yeah. And I think honestly, when I look at the whole Kyrie situation, like, I think he had basically put himself in a really tough spot as far as trying to secure that extension. You had the whole video incident that happened. You had the suspension from that, the fallout from that. The offseason, KD requests a trade. He requests a trade. Eventually, he pulls his back. Then it becomes, okay, so we doing this. And Brooklyn comes out, and I mean, him and KD playing, I mean, they had an 18-2, 18-3 stretch where they're playing really good basketball. Like, they're top 4 right now. They're 5th in the East. And then KD, sprains his MCL, and he's been out for the last few games. It's like Brooklyn was coming out. I mean, after they fired Steve Nash and Jacques Vaughn took the job again, because I want to say he was an interim guy, and then when they hired Steve Nash, they just kind of kept him kind of on that staff.
And also,
as
and
an assistant.
also, and also mentioned during that time, Kyrie went public, basically talking about him and KD would also share coaching duties.
Yeah.
While you actually have a head coach, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that was, I don't know, that was just a weird comment to make.
it's a weird comment to make, but to me, it's very appropriate to mention it when we look at the Kyrie saga. Like
Yeah.
that's that kind of thing where it's left up to question. Like I said, if we're gonna pay somebody based on their potential future, you have to look at their not so potential past. These things are here. These are things that you have done. Like you come out and make those kind of remarks that pretty much disparage the head coach that you have, and you expect that to somehow endear you to the organization to want to give you more money.
Yeah, like I said, it's a weird situation that he put himself in. I just think so. He wanted a long-term extension, but he had no leverage. It's like, okay, you have all the, off court baggage and stuff like that. There's also injury concern with Kyrie because he hasn't always been a perfect bill of health either. His
I mean,
only leverage.
he played all of what, like 37 seconds in college or something like that. You know?
And I mean, and like I said, has been a thing like his whole career is the injury bug. But it's like when you go even further, like into his career here, I mean, you talk about this year. I mean, he's an 8-time All-Star. He's voted in as a starter. So obviously, fans still hold this man in great regard.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, like, you just think, all right, like his reputation as a guy that ruins every team he's been on. Well,
the fans didn't do that.
It worked at least one time in Cleveland, and they had that guy LeBron there.
I was about to say he wasn't alone,
but he also did contribute to that. And
no, not to knock that, but again, I'm going to counter that with a question as well. He was a big part of why they won that ring in Cleveland, but all of this drama we're discussing in Brooklyn and Boston, how much of that happened in Cleveland?
Right.
You can't, like, and of course I don't mean you, but you can't, like, that's why I say you can't separate one from the other.
Yeah.
Because I mean, while he is a heck of a player, again, one of the best point guards walking this earth. I could make a joke here and say the earth that he thinks is flat, but then I'd be corny. So never mind.
I was talking to a coach earlier at a game, and he said, yeah, so like he's supposed to get to Dallas. Hopefully he doesn't make a wrong turn and fall off the earth.
Look, see, so I mean, I could crack the joke there, but again, it's like, just like I was saying earlier, it's like I agree that certain things should be left by the wayside. But then there's also the whole scenario of you wouldn't even have to negotiate things being left by the wayside if you didn't do them. Yeah. So
Kyrie, like just going off what you're saying, like, I mean, let's just call it what it is. Kyrie Irving is probably the biggest enigma in the NBA today,
and it's not even close.
Because he's supremely gifted and talented, and we've seen that.
Agreed.
We've seen that this year.
Agreed.
I mean, he's been brilliant in the games he's been able to play.
Agreed.
I think that in itself, just, after all the stuff that happened with what we've talked about already, with the move, with the documentary, the vaccine stuff, it's like, okay, like when he's on the court, dude's a devastating force, and in fact,
right.
When the game is in the balance, he's been the best player in the NBA this year. He leads the league in fourth quarter scoring.
Right.
And you're pairing him with the guy that currently leads the league in first quarter scoring. So
right.
you got a starter and a finisher in Dallas right now with that. Now, going back to the trade, and then I'll expand a little bit further, like him requesting a trade, he basically had given all his leverage away. He hasn't been available. When he has been able to play, he's been great. And that was last year too. In the games where he wasn't allowed to play because of not being vaccinated, that kind of thing. When he did play, he was great.
Right.
And that's what you're kind of banking on. I think as much as people are kind of rolling their eyes at the move and, it's Kyrie, people basically waiting for it to fail. I think that's been an overarching thing I'm seeing from some media. I'm gonna choose to take the more realistic and optimistic route about it. I think given all the stuff that happened in Brooklyn this year, all the vaccination stuff, you could make the argument that, now that that stuff's behind him and he's in a new place, that it could, everybody's like, well, it's a failure waiting to happen. And I'm like, well, what if it goes right? It's like,
no, you're absolutely right, but I gotta take a moment and I gotta tease you. You're super optimistic because his new place is Dallas. If he had gotten traded anywhere else, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation right now because neither
he was in LA. People wouldn't even be bagging it though.
But no. I'm not even saying LA. I just said anywhere else. Yeah. I'm even if he had gotten traded today to like Miami, we wouldn't even be spending this much time on this conversation right now because honestly, neither one of us would care. We really wouldn't. Like,
I wouldn't care.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. We hadn't even had like an in-depth Kyrie conversation like this up until this point. So it's changing based off fandom. It's like everything that Kyrie has done, he's done it. And now it's like the second chance is coming because he's about to wear that blue and white. Yeah. Like but at the same time, from the outside, and when I say from the outside, from somebody that's not a Dallas fan, I'm being realistic from the perspective of when I say we, I'm gonna say the media has had this same conversation about Kyrie every single time he's gone to a new team since Cleveland. And every single time he has proven to them within 2 years that he's the same Kyrie every time. So it's like it's like the whole Maya Angelou. Like when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Yeah. And as of right now, he has shown multiple teams in the NBA who he is. So I don't think anybody's wrong to not expect anything different with him going somewhere else.
Yeah, I just think, I think a underrated part of this, and I think it's interesting, is that given all the stuff that Kyrie has done, there were still teams that were willing to trade for him.
Because at the end of the day, he's talented. I agree with that.
But I'm saying, it's like, think of the teams that were looking to trade for him. It's like, obviously the Lakers.
Right.
Clippers were looking to get into that sweepstakes. Phoenix was looking to get into that sweepstakes. Like, because he's a guy that's box office.
And the only team out of everybody that wanted to move for him, the only team that's won a ring recently was the Lakers. Mm-hmm. And if you look at it, okay, so those teams outside of the Lakers, they want to win, right?
Right.
If you look at the Lakers, even if they don't win, just like you said, box office, they want ratings. They know what Kyrie can bring based off the name. And to them, it's like a lot of times in those situations, and not just the Lakers, this is any team in the league. You might have a player that's a headache in the locker room. You might have a player that's a headache on the court. But at the end of the day, if he can bring us more positive from the sake of revenue, from the sake of attention, from the sake of fans in the seats, if he can bring us more of that and say we don't win this year, okay, cool. So a lot of teams are willing to take that risk when they know it's not so much a risk. Yeah, we might not win this year, but guess what? We got Kyrie. So you know what? For the next 9 months, all eyes on us. Right. So they're willing to do that simply for that. And they also, and the unfortunate thing there is even that comes along with an assurance that they know They're like, yeah, he might come in here and give us 27 and 9, 27 and 10. But you know what? He might also come in here and say that he wants to take a sabbatical for some reason. But either way, the media is going to be looking at us. So that's cool.
I think Dallas, it's interesting because Dallas is one of those teams, and it's kind of odd because on the face of it, and I was listening to Ryan Russillo earlier, and they were talking about this, the kind of, I don't even know what you'd call it, kind of the pattern that Dallas is in. Dallas is one of those teams where, if you think about it, given their reputation as a franchise, Mark Cuban being the owner, being in Texas, no state tax, this is a team you would think Dallas would be like a solid, location for like marquee players. Dallas has not been that team. They're not LA, they're not New York, they're not Miami.
Right.
They're kind of in that secondary market. Now, Dallas, if we're being real, Dallas, was fortunate enough to discover Dirk Nowitzki, draft him, have 21 years there, multiple, establishing that team as a viable franchise in the NBA, 12 50-win seasons with Dirk there, winning the title in 11, all that stuff, right? But like outside of Dirk, man, like it's darkness, bro. It's darkness. Dallas has never really been like that locale for, I mean, think about it. They've always drafted guys, and then those guys go somewhere else and be great. Look at Jason Kidd, Jamal Mashburn, Jim Jackson, Mark Aguirre stopped through there. All these great players. Rolando Blackman was a great player there. Like we know them to be great.
One of the best outside of Dirk.
Right. Yeah. And then you got other guys that used to be great. Dallas has been one of the best teams in the league. And we talked about this the other day. They've been one of the best teams in the league at grabbing guys that used to be great, that are like on fumes or like kind of at the end of their careers. I mean, look at the 2011 team. They had Peja Stojakovic. They had Sean Marion, Jason Terry, Jason Kidd. Like Brian Cardinal, Deshaun Stevenson, Brendan Haywood, Tyson Chandler.
I was just about to say that was the whole time when they had the whole like rubber match with Tyson Chandler. I was just about to mention him.
Right. And so we joke all the time. Like we joke all the time. I mean, Caron Butler, we joke all the time that if it was 2004 and the Mavericks had their 2011 team in 2004, it would be the greatest team ever assembled. Because think about it.
Easily.
Like, not even to get so much into that. Peja Stojakovic was an MVP candidate in 2004.
Yeah.
Tyson Chandler was a young, bouncy dude for the Chicago Bulls. Like, Brian Cardinal was about to sign like a deal. He just had a big year with the Golden State Warriors.
Brian Cardinal.
Like the team was loaded. Jason Kidd was an MVP candidate. Jason Terry was killing it in Atlanta. Like that team, top to bottom, was stacked. If you look at 2004,
and his head was still big.
Yeah, and like you just look at like they've always been that team to get guys the second or third time around. Darren Williams was in at the twilight of his career when they got him. Amari Stoudemire, people don't remember. He spent time in Dallas. David Lee, former All-Star, spent time in Dallas. Elton Brand, Chris Kaman. Need I say more? Like all these guys that were great once upon a time eventually ended up in Dallas when they weren't that same guy. Sean Marion was the closest to
Matrix.
Trix was the main guy, like that still had like a good amount, and Tyson that still had a lot in the tank when it came to that team. So
it's so funny. It's so funny that you bring up Darren Williams, because I was on the way home and they were making jokes about the the group disbanding just now in Brooklyn, and they were talking about they were like, do you realize that that Kevin Durant, Kyrie, and James Harden won the same number of playoff series in Brooklyn as Paul Pierce, Garnett, and Darren Williams?
That's tough, bro. That's tough. Like that's like, and it's like, who do you even blame for that? It's like when
honestly
Brooklyn became a thing.
Honestly, I blame all three of them. I that my opinion, I blame all three of them, because when they first got together, it was basically on some like, Miami LeBron big three type talk where they got together and they were like, oh, we about to do this.
Yeah.
Like,
And
it's about to go down.
Prokhorov
And
was basically on some like, money is no object. I'm willing to
exactly.
spend as much as possible to like try and basically buy a championship team.
Exactly. So with them getting together and coming in with that same mentality, oh, we're about to do this. Oh, it's about to happen. And the next thing you know, James Harden is like, get me out of here. Then we're talking to Kyrie, and Kyrie's like, oh, man, I ain't never going to leave 7. I ain't never going to leave 7. Back to my whole thing with Kyrie. Oh, I ain't never going to leave 7. You told the fans you'd never leave Boston. You said you didn't want to leave Cleveland. Track records mean something.
Right.
So you've been saying this over and over and over. So James Harden says, get me out of here. All of a sudden, Kevin Durant is like, get me out of here. Then you don't want to be here. Then Kevin Durant is like, okay, I'll rescind my trade request. Then all of a sudden you opt in. Now Durant's on this tip again. Like,
so basically what you're saying is Kyrie is basically if never let them know your next move was a person. So that's it. I think I understand the concerns. I get it. I feel like I'm in the same spot right now as I was in 2014, 15, actually, when Dallas made the trade for Rondo. Like, Rondo had made all-star teams, had won a ring. Like, granted, he had earned that reputation as a guy that was like tough to get along with, whatever. But I remember being hyped as hell about that when Rondo.
But again, that's back to the point though. It's because he's coming to your team.
Yeah, but I'm saying
if
like but there was all these reasons to be excited about it.
Like, that right there is the cough drop to a sore throat, is when he's coming to your team. Like, if this same Kyrie headache was going to Phoenix, we'd be on this podcast right now talking about like, oh, wait and see how this goes. Like, we wouldn't be sitting here saying, you know what? I think this would be all right. Like, we would both be sitting here saying, you know what? This has happened. This has happened. Let's just wait and see. We're going to wait and see. Like, I'm saying all that to say it's easy to be hopeful when that talent is putting on your jersey.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just me in general, though. I mean, I think, I'm always going to look at it from the bright side of it, because it's like, I'm different than, I mean, we talked about this too. Like, I mean, I see a lot of stuff, some people like get kind of arrogant about their fandom, where like they kind of take this like kind of ownership of the team. Like, so if a player's not playing well, get this bum off my team and this and that. I'm not that guy. I'm more of a traditional fan. Like, I want everybody on the team to do well, that kind of thing. I think like if we look at it and, just to shift gears on it a little bit, like in terms of basketball fit, offensively, this is one of the biggest things that Dallas could do as far as bolstering their offense. I mean, you add a guy like Kyrie to play with Luka. Now, granted, I think this is an opportunity to see if Luka is able to kind of give up some of his usage rate in favor of not being able to have to do everything. Because I think,
and that's going to be.
He had a 39% usage rate this year, which is like top 3 in the league. I think just behind like Giannis, I believe. And like
they said,
it's not sustainable. Like even in the playoffs, it's like you see what teams could do. Like, obviously you could beat the Utahs of the world and you could beat Phoenix because, obviously Phoenix thought just because they made the finals that they had arrived and they were the best team in the West until they came up against Dallas. And, Dallas beat them because they didn't have anybody to stop Luka, who's one of arguably the best offensive player in the world right now. So it's like, even then, Dallas made the Western Conference Finals because they had Jalen Brunson as that second guy. They had Dinwiddie playing well. The role players peaked.
Right.
All the role players were playing
Right.
great. Maxi Kleba, who had
Right.
been shooting the ball terribly leading up to the playoffs, got hot.
At the end of the day,
Right.
we are in love with a game that is a team sport.
Yeah.
And as of right now in the league, on average, the numbers have been calculated. On average, the one guy that spends the most time with the ball in his hands is Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
In the NBA, there are
Right.
450 men in the NBA. And he right now sets the standard for holding the ball in his hands the most. If I'm game planning for Dallas, I'm taking that Larry Brown 04. I always go back to that because that's the one series that's always going to break my heart. I always go back to Larry Brown in Detroit in 2004 because that's exactly how they beat us. When you see who has the ball the most, go get them. Let everybody else do what they want. And that's been the one thing that's been the downfall for, in my opinion, for Dallas is
it's like
once players figure out we just need to put a lock on Luka, that's it.
Yeah,
and
good luck with that.
when it goes to, I mean, it's been pretty good luck so far. I mean,
the thing is,
he ain't got no rings on his fingers. I mean,
the thing
it's
is,
been
though,
good luck
it's
so
like,
far.
You could say, all right, well, we can try to clamp Luka. I think more teams are realizing like you can't really clamp him, but you can limit.
At the same time,
you can let him cook and tell everybody else that they won't eat.
No, and that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at with the whole Larry Brown and the Detroit reference.
Right.
It's like you see that Shaq and Kobe are doing all the work, so let them do it. But Robert Horry ain't finna get nothing. Derek Fisher ain't finna get nothing. And that's exactly what's been going on with Dallas.
Yeah.
So if you look at the thing is, my thing is, and again, I'm not gonna sit here and say that it's not going to work. I'm just gonna sit here and give projection based off what I know. Again, I have to base it off what I've seen. If you have a guy that is currently leading the league in usage rate, a guy that's leading the league in how much time the ball spends in his hands, and you're bringing in a guy that's coming from a team where he also led his team in those same stats, it's going to take some time to get used to that. One of those guys is on an expiring contract, and we only have about 30 games left in the season.
Right.
That's a lot to have to deal with. And you're in the Western Conference, and the guy that you're bringing in has never played in the West before.
Right.
And you bring in, you can't ignore it, all the baggage that he brings with him. That's a lot to deal with.
Yeah, it's a high risk thing for Dallas. I think it's a risk that they needed to take. I think a lot of it is desperation, but I think a lot of it is understanding just how close you are. I think, right now, I mean, from 4 to 13, I think it's only like 4 games separating.
It's not like 4 or 5. Yeah.
From 4 to 13. So it's like the West is so outside of, Denver and, teams up there. Everybody's like right there. So I think in order to try and break away from the pack, you had to do something bold. I think for Dallas, I like it for them because obviously you got to give up something to get something. I love, like I said earlier in this pod, I love Dinwiddie. I love Dodo, but like you have to give up something to get something. I think that was a good package for them. In the short term, I love it in terms of an offensive thing, especially like I said, if Kyrie is ready to play, which I think he will be. He'll be available to play Wednesday against the Clippers. I think Luka will be back Friday. So it's like offensively, I think given the way Dallas plays right now, like they're kind of more of a free flowing kind of team right now. I think the offense will be better immediately. Maybe they still some things have to work out, but I think the offense will be great. Defensively is where we're going to see some issues because Dorian Finney-Smith was, he's been coveted by the Nets for years. A lot of people don't know that, but they've wanted Dorian Finney-Smith for years, and there's a good reason why. He's one of the best 3-and-D players in the NBA, and he was the top defender on the Mavericks. So when I look at that, when you give up your best defender and your second leading scorer, you're trying to do something to shake your team up and win. So I think from an offensive standpoint, you got a guy that can take the pressure off Luka, doesn't have to create everything. I think this is a situation where Kyrie's played with a similar guy in LeBron. He can play off the ball. He can do some playmaking. He can score at all three levels. He's a great free throw shooter, which I don't think people talk about enough. He's 88% at the foul line. So, Dallas can solve that problem. They've had issues making free throws this year. And we finally would get to see a guy that's good enough to where Luka can actually play off the ball more. We've seen that, but not in the NBA. We've seen it when he played for Slovenia, in the Eurobasket. Like, Goran Dragic ran the show there. He wasn't on the ball for them as much. So it'd be a chance to unlock that part of his game in Dallas and see how that progresses. But I still think there's another move to be made. I like that Christian Wood is there. Huh?
No, I was saying, you said there's another move to be made. I said it has to be.
Yeah, I think there's another move that has to be made. There's a lot of tradable pieces that are there. A lot of people that are having interest as guys that you want to move off of. Tim Hardaway Jr., Reggie Bullock, Dwight Powell, Davis Bertans, JaVale McGee. These are guys that you're looking to get rid of because of their contracts or lack of production in relation to their contracts. Christian Wood is interesting because he's been kind of shopped around this year. Me personally, I think they should trade it only if you can get something really good in return. Mm-hmm. Even though I'm not as down on Christian Wood as most people. I think
I was just about to say, I was about to come for you because we can go a few episodes back where you were boosting the hell out of Christian Wood.
Like,
so
I've liked Christian Wood. I'm not like a lot of people talked about, he's been on bad teams. It's like, I get it. But I think, when he moved into the starting lineup, he started to show like, okay, I can play winning basketball. I can score. I can protect the rim. He's always been a good rebounder. I think, honestly, him on this team as the third option is really, really attractive. I love a big three of Luka, Kyrie, and Christian Wood. Like, Christian Wood is to this team what Chris Bosh was to the Heat. Like, it's literally that kind of dynamic across those three guys. And then, I mean, granted, it was against Utah tonight, but they have developing role players
except the unfortunate thing is that Kyrie ain't as reliable as Dwayne Wade in that big three situation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, all this stuff right now, we're playing all of it on paper, and it still has to play out. But like, I'm in love with the potential of it. And hopefully it's not like the Tom Thibodeau situation where he said, if you're waiting on potential, you're waiting on losing.
Just to give a quick update on what you were saying about the gap. So the Grizzlies are currently sitting in the second spot in the West. Right. The Lakers are sitting at 13. Mm-hmm. The gap between the 13 seed and the second seed right now is 7.5 games.
It's wide open. It's wide open.
That's right. The only teams in the West right now that nobody is checking for are San Antonio and Houston. The Lakers are literally only 12 games out of first place. And I know that sounds like, okay, you're saying only 12. Yes, only 12. And that's not even me speaking as a fan right now. I know as a Laker fan, we don't have any chance of getting up into one of those top 4 spots. We're not going to get there the way the team is put together now. And it's clear that the front office has no urgency to make any major moves. I think the Kyrie move was something that they were shooting for. And once that fell apart, then now it's like drawing board and you only have about 3-4 days to make a move. There's not going to be anything that goes down over these next 3-4 days that's going to shock the league. Lakers ain't going nowhere.
The thing that pisses me off about like what the Lakers have done is like, it's like they haven't really like come out and said, okay, what our plan is. Everybody's saying just because it's the Lakers, you expect them to be competitive and try to be a championship team, but
of course,
it's like they haven't addressed the major needs of their roster. When you look back to the team that won the title in the bubble, they had pretty much everything. They had enough shooting. They had LeBron. They had AD, playing really well in the bubble. They had big man depth,
and he spent most of his time healthy.
Yeah, and they had big man depth and all that stuff. Like it was a team that had all the things that you want around LeBron. Mm-hmm. Then you look at this team, they don't have much shooting. The big man play is a little spotty. AD's kind of in and out the lineup.
Defense is
depth
awful.
is kind of weird. So, it's not a team that is like perfectly built for the skill sets of its best players.
What was that? What was that commercial back in the day? They were like, this season, the Lakers defense is offensive.
Yeah, there you go. And it's like, you got an aging team, aging LeBron. Like you want to try and maximize. And I think this is the thing that makes me mad about it is like, you want to maximize the last few years of these guys' careers, especially LeBron. Like he's the guy there, regardless of, you want AD to take the mantle from LeBron. No, it's LeBron's team.
Right.
And, I think either you make a move now and try to kind of pry that window open, because I feel like the Lakers feel like if they can get into the playoffs, they're dangerous.
Of course.
But you still got to make the playoffs. And that's going to be hard to do with the roster you have because the West is loaded. It's deep. It's wide open. And because, like I said before, because it's so wide open and there's like, if you mess around and lose, you go on a skid where you lose 4 or 5 in a row, you could go from like 5th to like 13th.
Right.
Like you could fall out of the play-in. So that's what makes a move for Kyrie, even though it's risky as hell, it still is a move you make to try and separate yourself from the pack. Now, like I said, there's still questions to be answered on Dallas's roster. As far as what goes around Kyrie and Luka, what I was about to get to before is like, even though it was Utah tonight, 2 young players for Dallas that stepped up and played really well were Josh Green and Jaden Hardy. Josh Green's like a 3rd-year guy, finally taking the leap as far as like a legitimate rotation player. He had 29 tonight. Jaden Hardy, a rookie who played, in the G League before coming to the NBA, he had 29 off the bench. Those are 2 guys that are like their journeys in the NBA have been kind of weird. Like, under Rick Carlisle, Josh Green got no minutes, no time. Last year, he played a little bit, but then he was unplayable in the playoffs because he was so green, no pun intended. Then you get to this year and he's finally showing like, hey, like he looks like a guy that can play in your rotation, start for you in a pinch, do some playmaking, do all the other stuff that like you ask, you would want a role player around Luka to do. Drive the paint, kick to shooters, do some 3-point shooting, get to the rim, play D. Like he's a connector. And I really like his improvement this year. I think them shipping out Dorian Finney-Smith is saying, yeah, like it's time for you to step into these minutes. We believe you can. Jaden Hardy, I think, is up next too. So I think, like I said, just looking at how this trade affects Dallas, those are 2 guys to watch as far as moving forward. How do they work themselves into the rotation and playing with guys like Luka and Kyrie? Because I think those 2 dudes are important. Now, another thing that's important, if you made it this far, make sure you're subscribing to the JWJ podcast on YouTube.
Yeah, man.
Our last episode, I don't know how many views it's got, but it was a banger. If you want to know, if you're interested in listening to us talk about the impact of mental health in the NBA. Listen to that episode. I feel like it's one of our best, and we're really proud of it.
Getting real.
You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on Twitter, even though we might not be on there too much longer. Thanks a lot, Elon. IG, we're picking up some traffic there. Facebook, you can give us a like on there at the JWJ podcast. Thank you so much for your patronage, listening to us talk about this trade. Now, a couple more things on the Kyrie thing that I want to touch on is like the teams that missed out. Obviously, LA, we talked about the package they had for him. There was a couple different things that could have worked in their favor. I think one trade I saw thrown out was Russ, the 2 first-rounders, and Lonnie Walker. That was one trade I saw thrown out. I saw it without Lonnie Walker. I saw it without the picks, too. All those could have worked. Brooklyn said no. We got the Joe Tsai deal surprise. About not wanting to send him to LA. What do you think about that?
No, I honestly, if I'm Joe Tsai, I don't blame him one bit. I don't. Like, again, that goes back to your history precedes you. I do not have a single problem with Joe Tsai being like, I'm not going to give Kyrie the satisfaction of sending him where he wants. He gave that team pure hell. You again, I say, one of the best ball players on the planet, and you went into that team like a freaking prima donna. I don't see anything wrong with what Joe Tsai did.
How much better? Let me ask you this. How much better? Say he does go to LA. Say the trade goes to LA. What's the outlook, just to put on your hypothetical hat on that? Like, what's the outlook if they acquire Kyrie for Russ?
Doesn't change a damn thing, in my opinion. It gives us a better point guard. It moves, like, say, a Patrick Beverley to the bench, but then we lose the production of a guy like Russell Westbrook. Doesn't change a damn thing. Doesn't change anything. That's why when that trade went down, I was shocked that it was Dallas, but I wasn't even mad. Like, him not going to LA doesn't do anything. If he had gone to LA, it wouldn't have done anything. I think it would have given us, same thing in Dallas. It would have given us a bunch more as far as offensive options. Wouldn't have changed anything defensively. And we probably would have still been in the same place. To me, I respect Joe Tsai because he's like, I'm not going to send Kyrie where he wants because of everything he's done so far. But at the same time, I'm like, Joe Tsai, at the end of the day, you're kind of an idiot because you're trying to prove a point to Kyrie. I'm not going to send you to the Lakers because that's where you want to go. So I'm going to send you to another team in the same conference that is currently doing better than the team that you want to play for. Makes no sense to me. Hey, Joe Tsai, you dropped the ball on that one. Heavy. You dropped a heavy ball on that one. I'm gonna send you to a better team in the same conference rather than send you to the team that you want to go to, even though at the end of the day, in 4 to 5 months, you'll be a free agent.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
I think it also says, I think it's also an indictment of like how bad you don't want Russell Westbrook. I think they looked at that and said, I don't want Russ and KD again.
I mean, no, to me, I don't even look at it as that much, simply because Russ is on an expiring deal too.
Right.
It's like, because if we're being real with everything going on in Brooklyn right now, is there anybody in Brooklyn that really thinks that they're still about to make a title chase this year? They're not.
Like, I think as constituted, assuming you get KD back and everything, and he's supposed to be reevaluated soon. I like the deal they made for Dinwiddie and Dorian.
No,
because it gives you 2 starters you can plug and play right now.
But they're already like I like the deal. I agree with you, but one, there's already talks that they're not planning on keeping Spence.
Mm-hmm.
And that alone lets you know that they're planning for the future. They're not planning for right now.
Yeah. The
Already
only way you move Dinwiddie and plan to get better is if you're trying to get like another all-star caliber player. Like say you go out and you flip Spence for an OG Anunoby, or you flip him for Fred VanVleet, or you flip him for like, Zach LaVine or whoever. Like that's the only to me, it's a win now deal for Brooklyn, but I don't think it's the win now as far as
no, it's not. It's not a win now if it stays the way that it is, and that's why
it's definitely more complete team. I think.
No, they're more complete, but more complete to me doesn't equal better, and that's the issue that Brooklyn is running into. So I don't think that the trade, I'm with you, I don't think the trade necessarily made them better. It made them a more well-balanced team. And that's why I say, like, not even, I mean, when it comes to the Laker trade, if they had taken on Russ, I wouldn't have seen that any differently, because either way, regardless of which trade you make, you're still not a title contender without making other moves outside of that.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, I don't even think it was a matter of that they didn't want Russ. I think it was a matter of looking at Dallas, and it's like Dallas is willing to give us more from the body standpoint, to where up until Thursday, now we have more bodies to possibly make more moves. It's like, because their contracts were the closest on the roster, if we had simply taken picks and taken Russ, all we have to offer to try to move anywhere else is Russ. And that would have been much more difficult for us than if we were to try to say, like, oh, we got Spence, we got Dodo, we can do a lot more. So from that standpoint, I think the Dallas deal was the right deal to make.
Yeah. And I look at it like, okay, we've talked about, like, what if it goes well? I think best case scenario, Dallas finds a way to make it work. It clicks, and they make a run in the playoffs. Say they win a couple rounds. I think best case scenario, they find a way to make it back to the Western Conference Finals. That's best case scenario, what we're talking about. Worst case scenario, they're right where they are now, which is, 5 games over 500, whatever. And basically, I mean, I think Dallas has played this as well as you could play it. You get at least a rental of Kyrie. They're not going to talk contract extension till the end of the year. If they were to extend him now, it'd be like 2 years, $78 million. If you wait until the summer, the extension goes to like 4 years and I think 198, or at least that's what it was in Brooklyn. So Dallas has time to see, okay, is this going to work? Do we extend him short term, or do we try to get him a longer term deal? If it does not work, Kyrie's money comes off the books. You have at least 24 million in open cap space to sign a max player, to sign a few players to help Luke or whatever. So it's like, it's an interesting place to be in for Dallas. This is the first time in franchise history that they can say they have 2 guys that are about to start in the All-Star game on the same team. So they even have that with Dirk, as far as guys that were starting the All-Star game. So I think it was a good move for Dallas, because
I think that comes with a ton of asterisks behind it. Because I mean, he just happened to get traded there after he.
That's what I'm saying. I'm talking about, like, just in terms of guys that are going to be starting in the All-Star game. Like, yeah, he's coming from the East, but to say that you have those 2 guys on your roster, like that's a first for Dallas. They haven't had 2 all-star starters on their team. So moving forward, at least you have those two caliber players on your roster. So
Yeah,
looking at the bigger picture,
we're gonna get to a point later on in this episode about the whole all-star thing. I'm like, does it even really damn matter that you have all-star starters? But we'll get to that.
But the point I'm trying to make is, like, even if it doesn't work, say it doesn't work with him and Luka, at the end of the day, he can move on. Dallas has the cap flexibility in getting off of Dorian and Spence, that they can go out and try to find somebody else to plug into that spot. Now, granted, if it doesn't work, the pressure definitely heightens because the time is ticking. Like, granted, Luka just signed a max extension, but you can't rest on your laurels if you're Dallas in that front office and say he's going to be content with us just trotting out these mediocre role players around him, and he's going to have to just carry the load, because what's going to happen is it's going to wear him down. He's going to have more injuries, and we've seen that Luka's had a few nagging injuries in his career: ankles, back, neck, all that stuff. So it's not guaranteed. Like, if it doesn't work, like, Luka's still gonna be like, all right, so what are we gonna do now? And that's the pressure that Dallas's front office has to feel. It's a good move in the right direction because you're willing to be aggressive and try to take a chance. If it does work, wow, great work. If it doesn't work, you go back to the drawing board with cap space and a chance to try and find some other players to complement Luka and try to build a championship team. So I think Dallas put themselves in a good spot. Now, that being said, we're going to shift gears. We're going to move to the WNBA when we talk about moves, because we have seen plenty of those. We have seen so many. It's been really entertaining to watch. So, James, I'm going to give you the floor on that one, bro.
Listen. You already know how I feel here, man. I'm super excited. I'm going to try not to get too crazy, but I'm just going to preface it by saying, if you are not paying attention to the ladies of the WNBA during this upcoming season when it kicks off, in May, what are you doing? I don't want to hear anybody complain about the game if you're not taking the time to watch. This off season has been one of the most insane off seasons that I have seen since I became a hoops fan. It has been wild.
NBA-esque.
Listen. I'll just go through a few of the moves quickly, because there's a couple of them. No, they're not just a couple. There's a few of them that I really want to spend a little bit of time on that have been just mind blowing. I mean, I'm there. No knock on respect or any of that, but I'm gonna just go from the ones that I feel like I can run through, and then we're gonna get to the cream of the crop. So, some of the moves that we've seen so far. We've seen that Azura Stevens, formerly of the Chicago Sky, she's part of their championship team a couple of years ago. She's leaving Chicago to go to the LA Sparks. The Sparks have been shaking a lot of things up over the last few weeks. Crystal Dangerfield, who was the Rookie of the Year in 2020, she's headed to the wing. She's going to play for Dallas. Erica Wheeler, I mean, and with anybody else, I don't know if y'all are following it like me, but what really hit me to Erica Wheeler was that she made the All-Star team a few years ago, went to the All-Star game, and actually ended up winning All-Star MVP. And, shout out to her. She was in Indiana at the time, left Indiana. She played in Atlanta for a little bit. She's leaving Atlanta. She's actually going back to Indiana. So shout out to Erica Wheeler making that return. And I know the team is, welcoming her open arms. That's super dope. Here's where we get to the beef of the matter. Here's where we get to the big stuff. Now, we know our reigning champs, the Las Vegas Aces, they've shaken some things up. De'Arica Hamby, sixth. It annoys me so much that they refer to it as sixth player of the year. I feel like I've said that before on this pod at some point. Why is it sixth player of the year? If the NBA calls it sixth man of the year, what's wrong with calling it sixth woman of the year? That irrelevant. But anyway, so De'Arica Hamby, former sixth woman, I don't care what they call it, sixth woman of the year. She was traded right after this title season to the Sparks. And there was a little bit of controversy. I say a little bit because I feel like understating it for the sake of, entertainment. There was a little bit of controversy that came along with that because De'Arica has come out and spoken on the fact that she feels she was very disrespected by the Aces organization. There were things coming out about her having her work ethic questioned and how badly she really wanted to be a part of the team and all of these things. And when she got traded, she made it a point to mention on social media, I'm going to miss the fans. I'm going to miss the city, but I have to talk about the organization. And she came out and she had plenty to say about the organization. She said that the organization accused her of signing her most recent contract, which she had just signed last year. She said that they accused her of signing her extension while she was knowingly pregnant. The WNBA has it in their contracts, in their I don't know if you would call them bylaws or whatever, like part of the CBA and all of that, but they have it in there to where if a player is to get pregnant during a season, they will still get their money for the season. They'll get maternity leave, and all of that still works in their favor, which I'm fully in favor of. I don't see a problem with that. But they're trying to accuse De'Arica Hamby, according to her, they're trying to accuse Hamby of signing a contract to get her money while she was knowingly pregnant. Once she was able to verify to them that she was not pregnant, or at least not knowingly pregnant at the time of signing the contract, then they started trying to come down on her about not taking proper precautions to not get pregnant. And it's just all of these things where
they're overstepping at that point.
They're absolutely.
That's
you're
crazy.
You're gonna come out and tell me, hey, you just signed this contract, you better not be unprotected. It's totally irresponsible.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally irresponsible. It makes no sense. So we can go on that for days. I'm not happy about the way that the Aces are supposedly handling the situation with De'Arica Hamby. I don't know what's truth, what's fallacy. I'm not gonna sit here and play it up one way or the other. We'll come back to that situation later. I did just want to give y'all a little bit because we have a lot more on the WNBA scope outside of that. Now, moving De'Arica Hamby helped to clear the way for quite possibly one of the biggest free agency moves in recent WNBA history. Somebody that we thought might be retiring decided not only is she not retiring, she's coming to Vegas, joining the defending champions, Candace freaking Parker. Candace Parker announced on social media about a week ago that she is going to be leaving the Chicago Sky, who everybody assumed she was going to join them because she's a Chicago native. They thought that was going to be her swan song. They thought that she was going to play there and she was done. She went there in her first year there. She won a ring. Everybody thought that's where she was going to remain. That's where she was going to end up. She was going to be done. Nah. So she ends up leaving Chicago this offseason and signing with the Las Vegas Aces. So look at this now. The Las Vegas Aces have Asia Wilson, Kelsey Plum, Jackie Young, the reigning WNBA Finals MVP in Chelsea Gray. And now you're adding another former Finals MVP in Candace Parker. It's almost unfair. And it would, and here's the thing, it would seem totally unfair if we didn't go look at the Eastern Conference, because in the meantime, the New York Liberty are dealing with the New York Liberty are dealing with the Sabrina Ionescu, who's coming back off of her injury. You know, she's coming back into form, and she's about to be joined by Jonquel Jones, who was traded to the team from Connecticut a few weeks ago. As if that wasn't strong enough, we also end up finding out that Breanna Stewart is leaving the Seattle Storm to go back home. She's from New York. She will now be a member of the New York Liberty. We're not done. We're not done. Chicago was falling apart even more. Allie Quigley decides that she's going to sit out this season. She's already notified Chicago that she will be sitting out this season. Her wife, Courtney Vandersloot, we were wondering, and immediately as soon as they said Quigley was sitting out, I wondered what was going to happen to Courtney. Courtney Vandersloot has announced she's leaving Chicago. Do I need to say where she's going? She's going to New York. So now we're looking at a roster in New York of Ionescu, Jonquel Jones, Courtney Vandersloot, Breanna Stewart. Come on now. So we're basically about to enter a super team era in the WNBA. And this is gonna be fun to watch. I'm telling you, if you have never watched WNBA hoops, this is the time that you need to do it, because you are about to see some of the best in the game do what they do. And it is going to be super, super entertaining.
Yeah. I think like this super team era that's coming into the WNBA right now, like this could very well be the precursor to this league blowing up and becoming like more of a thing. Like, look at the NBA. Everybody talks about like super teams now. No. Let's go back to the 80s. There were fewer teams, so you had more Hall of Famers on rosters than ever before. Look at the 86 Celtics. Look at the Lakers teams of the 80s. Like, these teams were loaded. 86 Celtics had had Bill Walton at the end of his career as their sixth man. Before that, Kevin McHale was sixth man. Like, I think there's a lot of parallels now. Like, you need like that kind of. I think this is the perfect thing to shake up and create interest in the WNBA, is having so many great players playing on these teams, because there's only, I think, like 12 teams in WNBA. And so having all these players on one team definitely is going to stoke interest. There's teams we haven't even talked about that maybe didn't make big moves, but they'll be in the conversation. We talked about the Sparks. They'll be back. They still got the Ogwumike sisters. They still have a loaded roster. The Phoenix Mercury, we talk about them. They're getting Brittany Griner back. They, Diana Taurasi is there. Like, team is looking good. So, we're going to see some of those teams that were traditional powers maybe take a step back, like Seattle, like Chicago. So, I mean, the Atlanta Dream are on the come up. They just got the Rookie of the Year and all that. So, I'm excited for, the WNBA right now. I'm excited about, where they're at, as far as, all the star power. So, all these moves, I mean, it's great. To me, looking at the Aces, the addition of Candace Parker, man, that team is arguably the favorite, right there with New York. As good as they were last year defensively, they can get even better defensively with Candace Parker in there. Candace Parker, really versatile, can do it all on the court. She can shoot, she plays defense. She's still very effective and versatile as a playmaker. It makes them better defensively. Offensively, it makes them more diverse. So I'm excited to see the Aces play. I'm interested to see the dynamic of Asia Wilson playing with Candace Parker. She did an interview, I think it was on The Shop recently, where she said that, she would love to play with Candace Parker. Me as a fan, I'd love to see both of them play together. I think that's going to be awesome, especially with everybody coming back. Jackie Young, like James mentioned, Kelsey Plum, and Chelsea Gray, the reigning WNBA Finals MVP. So, this off season has been crazy. There could be more moves to be made. I'm just excited to see so much player movement going on. With that. So it's very NBA-esque. We always talk about that's what makes NBA free agency so awesome, is who's going where, and what players are changing teams, and who's getting rid of a guy, and who's making that blockbuster trade, or who's signing somewhere. So WNBA, I think, needs this as far as to get more eyes on the sport. Hopefully this is this part of something that's going to spark something even better, is having all these players playing on these teams to generate interest, like I mentioned. But is there going to be like a next wave of players that will be kind of the Larry Bird, Magic Johnson people that arrive, open up the consciousness of the sport, and heighten the profile to take it to new heights? I think that's the part that we're at right now with the player movement we're seeing right now. You got a mix of young, you got a mix of like current stars, people that have been stars that are at the end of their careers, and you got a young crop that's coming from the college ranks, whatever, that are in the league now that are just getting established. So it's a great time to plug in to the WNBA and kind of tune into it, because it's not the WNBA that you grew up on. It's not the WNBA that people make jokes about now. Like, if you spend time and watch it, it's a completely different game. Players are more athletic. Teams are more talented. It's it's a legitimate bona fide league. So all the people that dog it, they dismiss it because it's women.
They're just not paying attention.
These chicks can play, man. They can play.
They're just not paying attention. I'm like, and like you said, I'm totally with you. The future, the future is here. The future is now.
Right.
Aaliyah Boston,
Right.
Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark.
Man, man, come on. Like it's been outstanding. The women's tournament this year is going to be so much fun to watch. LSU and South Carolina are the only undefeated teams left in the women's D1. Like it's
Right.
it's gonna be so much fun to watch. I cannot freaking wait. Personally, I love Aaliyah Boston to death, but I would love to see the upset. I would love for those two teams to meet like at the end of the day, and I would love to see LSU take it. I don't know why. It's just something about Angel Reese's swag, man. I'm all about it, and I really like what she did, and what she had to say a few weeks ago, where she made that point about, it was basically on that whole what's the rapper's name? I think it's Finesse Two Times, where she basically came out and like had to like check the world on some like stereotypical stuff. She's like, why is it that when the women show emotion and we get so hype and we do this and we do that, it's like all of a sudden it's a problem. So I go back to the whole finesse thing. It's like you look at the men, it's like it's cool when they do it. It's a problem when I do it. Like I ain't gonna finish that because we try to keep this podcast as clean as we can. But I love that, and that immediately endeared me to Angel, because I'm just like, she's absolutely right. It's like, why is it that because I'm a woman, I have to carry myself a different way on the same court that the men play on? Like it makes no sense. Let me show the same emotion that they do. I'm like, y'all are mad at this woman because she literally, probably the most impressive college block I've ever seen in my life. She literally gets caught in the paint, loses her shoe, gets her shoe. The play is still going. Whistles have not been blown. You got a defender coming down the left side of the paint. Defender comes down. She has her shoe in one hand, comes up and still accomplishes the block with the other hand. And yes, she got aggressively excited. I freaking love it. I loved everything about it. Angel, if by chance you ever hear this podcast, I only have one bit of advice to you moving forward. Keep doing what the heck you're doing. Keep on.
And that's part of the shift. That's part of the shift.
Yes.
The shift I'm talking about is like you're seeing better players. You're seeing that golden era players starting to retire. You're seeing present stars arise. You're seeing young players that are coming into the league that are ready to play and ready to bring it. And so, like, and another part is what we're talking about with Angel Reese at LSU. We're seeing it evolve personality wise.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing it evolve in terms of that whole stereotype of women's basketball players. They're not feminine. They're too masculine. Like,
right.
It's a league of lesbians and that kind of like,
right. It immediately becomes sexual and stereotypical, right. And it's not right. And it's not right.
Right. And the thing is, what we're seeing with Asia Wilson, what we're seeing with Dee Richards, with Skylar Diggins, with before she was released by the Sparks, Taya Cooper, like we're seeing more of these players put themselves out there as far as like, yeah, I play basketball, but I'm also gorgeous.
Embracing their beauty.
Exactly. And you see it with Liz Cambage.
Yeah.
She's one of the tallest players in the WNBA. She's also one of the prettiest players in the league.
And honestly,
stepping into that.
Asia Wilson's another one.
Exactly.
Asia Wilson, that's
Candace Parker. Like,
yeah,
there's players all over the league that not only can they hoop, but they look good and they step into that and they carry themselves
Mhm.
with confidence and dignity and everything else. So it's not just, oh, it's a bunch of masculine women and all this, and
Right.
like it's not, like I said, it's not your granddad's or your auntie's WNBA. It's becoming a new improved, entertaining, diverse, international. It's becoming a global, multifaceted watching experience.
Yeah.
And like I said, the players are more athletic, they're more skilled. You don't see the jump shots you used to see. We used to talk about all the time, like, man, how come all the women shoot the same? No, there's women now. There's women now with, like, it started with Diana Taurasi, players that shoot the
One of
ball.
our best friends.
Yeah, that shoot the ball differently. It's like we've seen it from the high school level on. Men shoot one way, women shoot the other. Why do they take that little step? Why do they shoot from the
I
shoulder?
was about to say, stepping into the shot.
So
Yeah.
it's like, but you're seeing more women now. They're stronger. I mean, you're seeing, you look at Fran Belibi. They're
Yeah.
dunking. Women are dunking. Y'all wonder,
Mhm.
oh, ain't enough dunks. Well, you about to see dunks now. There's been
Mhm.
dunks in the WNBA for a while. Brittany Griner, Liz
And it's the
Cambage.
same way, and it's the
Like,
same thing. It's the same thing when it comes to the NBA. I
right.
mean, no matter what advances we see, I feel like people are still going to complain,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm like, just shut up, man.
Yeah, because
Like,
because what in the NBA, it's like, oh, they don't play defense anymore. It's like, okay, but if we're being honest, it's like, who basketball needed to become more offensive, because who the hell in 2022, 2023 is going to be running headlong trying to watch a game that's going to end 78-71.
and the thing is, the league has pushed for that to end.
Right.
You remember a few years ago when they decided that offensive rebounds wouldn't reset to 24, they'd reset to 14. Immediately I texted you and I was like, this league is offensive minded.
Right.
Like, because by doing that, you immediately are making, you're creating more possessions in a game. You
Right.
want higher scoring games. Like, at one point, the highest scoring game in regulation, what was it? Was Phoenix involved in it? You know the game I'm talking. I think it finished with me, like the final score was like 160 something. Like it was up there that way. But that happened maybe like 40 years, like 30, 40 years ago. And next thing you know, you have games today that are getting like, what was it? Boston. And yes, I can't remember. I think maybe Memphis beat them. I don't care who it was. I know Boston lost. Yes, I'm a Laker fan. Boston had given up like 150 points in regulation.
Yeah.
So we're getting to the game is offensive minded. Nobody appreciates defense anymore. So we want to see scoring. And I mean, I don't see a problem with that, but it has to be understood that that's where it's going. And it's the same way with the women's game.
Yeah. And in the men's game, it's like, defense, obviously, it goes back to the old cliche. Offense sells tickets and defense wins championships. It's like, okay, yeah, that's true. I mean, look at the teams that met in the NBA finals last year. They were like number 1 and number 2 in defense.
Mm-hmm.
So, and those still were teams that could score a lot of points too. So it's like, it can be done. Now, granted, nobody wants to see any defensive slugfest. The rule changes have made it pretty tough to be a defensive player in the NBA. Like,
Right.
you can't be Tony Allen right now.
No, not at all.
Like, if you're Tony Allen right now, you're not a starter in the NBA.
You're lucky if you're on a team, honestly.
Yeah, like, you have to have some kind of offensive thing. Dorian Finney-Smith is a great example. When he got to the league, he couldn't shoot, but he was a good defensive player, long, rangy, could guard multiple positions. People covet that guy because of the Sean Marions of old. Like,
we just talked about it. We just talked about it on if not the last episode, the one right before it. We were talking about the whole comparison of Dwight Howard and Carmelo Anthony.
Right.
Both of them are out of the league right now, and you made a really good point. You're like, the way the league is going right now, Dwight Howard not being in the league, it makes sense because he's a defensive minded player.
Right.
Carmelo, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Why is there not a Carmelo Anthony in the league right now?
Yeah, because you always need wing scoring, and that's like that's what makes it so puzzling. It's like, and with Dwight never, his game never evolved. But if you look at a similar player that had he was more of an offensive guy, but he's actually flipped it to where he's actually a defensive player of the year candidate. He flipped it. Oh.
He flipped it.
Yeah, like Brook Lopez.
Yeah.
Flash Mountain himself. Like,
yeah.
He turned himself into, from being a massive traditional back to the basket, had some face-up game center, to now he shoots threes and he's one of the better rim protectors in the game.
Right.
Completely flipped his game around. Like, another guy, Jonas Valanciunas, shoots jumpers now.
Man, come on.
He's an effective shooter. Like a lot of guys made that trek from being more back to the basket traditional centers to extending their range and in turn extending their careers. And so Dwight was the one guy that never really truly committed to taking his game away from the basket. Now, it's puzzling because I saw an interview he did recently about like his body changes over the years. You remember Dwight Howard when he was in Orlando, giant shoulders, just massive dude, 6'11", 6'10", 6'11", 275, 280, just a big dude. Like he looked like a superhero.
His shoulders were about as wide as his height. Man.
Exactly. He was a big dude.
It looked unreal, honestly.
He had injuries. He had stuff happen in Washington. And then, he came back. He was a smaller guy, probably like 240. And he said it was because like I was too big. I needed to get quicker. I needed to, I was bigger, but then like as the game went, it's like it became less. Like being huge became less of a thing I needed to be.
Which is scary when you think about the fact that like he was always big, but he was always so lean. Yeah. Like it wasn't like he was packing on. Like, I'll make the comparison. The world made the comparison for the longest time. He wasn't Shaq.
Right.
It was like
he was 6'11" and like 260, 270, but he probably only had like 3% body fat.
I was just about to say at least it had to be less than 5. Yeah.
I mean, like he was
always super lean
specimen.
Yeah.
And so like you would think with, and this is so funny because this is kind of a tangent. I don't think we put this in our notes, but like, think about it. Like when you look at the league now, it's like the guards are getting bigger and the bigs are getting smaller.
Yep.
It's kind of funny.
It's because the floor is expanding. I mean, it's because they're putting so much of a precedent on being able to step away from the basket.
Right.
And at the same time, you have these guards that you want. It's like you have the guards that you want to attack the basket and you want the bigs to step away. Again, that goes back to the whole idea of wanting the game to be offensive minded.
Right.
You're pulling the big men away because you want to clear that so that the guards can get in and put on a show.
Right. And it's fun to watch because I mean, I think that's what's lending the game to having so many international players that are like among the top 10 players in the league. Is we saw this in San Antonio kind of when we got into the 2010s, where San Antonio changed their style entirely. They used to be a very half-court oriented, defensive-minded team that would beat you 85-80. Like they were that team in the 2000s, in the 90s when they won their first title. As you got into the 2010s, you saw San Antonio play a more spread out ball movement, player movement type of style, a more European style of game. It fit them because they were very international oriented team. So what you saw in San Antonio became what has become the standard now in Golden State as far as ball movement, player movement, guys being really skilled and playing multiple positions, a positionless style game. Golden State is like the pinnacle of that style now. So now you're seeing European players who were looked at as, oh, they can't play in the league. They ain't gonna be able to play defense, like, blah, blah, blah. They're real skilled, but they can't guard anybody. Now you look at those same players like, damn, we kind of want them on our team now. Like Nikola Jokic can do it all. He posts. He's got exceptional touch in the paint. He can face up. He shoots a three. He can back you down. Because, like, to me, Nikola Jokic and even Joel Embiid, they're like the perfect modern big man as far as they can still back you down, but they also have finesse to their game too. Shaq would not hit shooting fadeaways and step backs and stepping out behind the three. But Joel Embiid is. Nikola Jokic can. He brings the ball up the court and runs the offense.
No, and it's funny. It's funny that you bring that up because I've been hearing a lot of debates about that. And it's quite personally, if I had to make my choice between the two, and I'll be that guy, I'm going to go of course, they're both international players. I'm gonna go the Denver route. If I had to make my choice between the two players, I would much rather have a Jokic on my team than a Joel Embiid. And it's not even to say that Embiid is not that guy, because Embiid's a hell of a player on his own. Right. But I'm much more of a traditionalist when it comes to this game. And while Jokic can do those things, I feel like he's the one that has taken the most advantage, and the organization has a lot to do with it. Right. But he's taken the most advantage of the players around him, and he's that one that is still like that traditional big that wants to play, like you said, back to basket. He to me, when I look at that position, that's what I want to see. And it's no knock on Joel Embiid at all. I love the way that he's also revolutionizing the game. But if I had my choice, I want a guy that's going to be able to back himself down. He's going to shoot 60-70% from the floor. But at the same time, if you come over here and you triple me, I can sit here and give you like a Magic Johnson type pass behind my head.
Right.
And I think next thing you know, I got a guy on the trail. Like, I'm sitting here like, oh, you thought you had it. Like, it's like the State Farm commercial. Oh, you got to be quicker than that. And, next thing you know, like you're getting dunked on by like Michael Porter behind me. Like, and you never saw it coming.
The league has never seen a player quite like Nikola Jokic. Like, you've seen great big men be great passers.
And into the and I gotta throw this in there real quick. I gotta throw it in there while it's on my mind. I know we talked before about the whole MVP and voter fatigue and this and that. Right now, Jokic is the MVP. I don't care what anybody says. People can have their biases. They can do what they want to do. This man has won the last 2 MVPs, and he is having a season right now that eclipses both of his MVP seasons. If he's not the MVP, then they just need to come out and admit that this is an entertainment award and we're not really looking at who the most valuable is.
He's the front runner. I mean, he's the best team in the West, and he's the best player right now. It's always been best player on best team, but like that's been the main thing traditionally. And I mean, he fits that bill. As far as statistical anomalies, I mean, we saw it with Steph, with his unanimous selection, probably the greatest single MVP season I've ever seen.
Right.
Jokic is right there. He's doing stuff the big men haven't done. Averaging triple double is big. We haven't really seen that ever. The way he impacts the game, just if you're looking at it from a X's and O's standpoint, it's like the point guards were always the passers, the big men were like the finishers and the rim protectors. It's like he may not be the rim protector, but he's an excellent rebounder. He's great around the rim. It helps when your 7-foot big guy is your leading assist guy.
Right.
He does it in a way that nobody's ever seen. Like he brings the ball up the floor. He's a point center. His ability to see the floor. Obviously, he's tall, which has always helped court vision. Doesn't matter if you're 6'1" playing with guys that are 5'5". If you can see over stuff, you can see things people don't see. He's 7 feet tall. He can see angles people don't see. He's got great creativity. He sees plays developing before they even happen. So, like, we've never seen anything like it. It's a weird mashup between, like, a bruising back to the basket center, a face-up big man that can shoot threes, and then, like, a point guard on the floor. It's insane. Like when we talk about guys with that skill set, we talk about Arvydas Sabonis or Vlade Divac or Brad Miller, like players that were great passers and back to the basket centers, but dude shoots the three. He does all this stuff. Like he's an anomaly, and he's really fun to watch.
Bringing up three big men that the Lakers made it a point to run through back in the day.
Yeah. I would love, and that brings up another thing. We're gonna have to get to the All-Star stuff here soon, but it brings up it brings up the whole. Imagine now if you said, okay, we're gonna freeze time, right? We're gonna take Nikola Jokic, we're gonna take Joel Embiid, we're gonna take Giannis, right?
Okay.
We're gonna plug them in to the NBA in 2001. Now, I would love to see Nikola Jokic bringing the ball up the court, and Shaq is out there having to guard him 40 feet from the rim.
The only thing that I feel would present a problem in that situation is I feel like Embiid is better in this situation, but if we look at Jokic, he's the type of big man that is much, much more proficient offensively, but are we really looking at him on the defensive end?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
It's like that would have been the only problem plugging him in back then. It's like you have to have somebody else playing in the paint with him that's actually going to care about defense.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the same knock as other European bigs had at that time. I mean, as great as Dirk Nowitzki was, if you put him and Shaq on the court at the same time, we know who wins that matchup physically.
Definitely.
It was more of a novelty and kind of a surprise or a weird thing to see a 7-footer just shooting threes. Now, seeing a guy get the rebound and lead the break, like I said, Dirk was one of the main guys doing that. Charles Barkley was smaller, but he was doing that. Like he was able to take off and go. How many guys Nikola Jokic's size are bringing the ball up the court as the point guard, but also like being able to initiate and also like dictate and finish on offense? Like it's a great thing, man. The game has trended in a way that makes it more free flowing. And I think Europeans now, you won't be able to hang because you don't play no defense. Now it's like we need big dudes that can actually handle the ball and shoot now.
Yeah.
You actually want the European big man now.
No, and
you want that guy now.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because and I feel like it's a perfect segue. I was just talking to some of my buddies the other day. They, one of them was asking like, where is the league gonna go? Once LeBron retires, we're closer to that than the beginning. So. Like he was like, who's gonna be the face of the league, once LeBron is gone? And I was like, you know what? There's not gonna be a face of the league, and that's what I love. I was like, it's not just going to be one guy. But one thing that I pointed out, I was like, what I really love about the game right now is how it's becoming so international. Like we have a Giannis, we have a Joel Embiid, we have a Jokic, we have a Luka, we have these guys right now. The world is waiting to see what happens with Victor Wembanyama.
Trade your mama
there you
for
go.
Wembanyama.
War Machine. Y'all go listen to our
War Machine for Wemby, twerking for Wemby.
Y'all go listen to our previous episodes, and that'll be funny to you. I promise. That's the JWJ podcast. We're on
If
Spotify.
you listen to this on YouTube,
there you go.
If you would like to see War Machine for Wemby, Trade Your Mama for Wembanyama, twerking for Wemby merch, give us a like, leave us a comment.
Let's get it, shawty. Listen.
Leave us a like and a comment, subscribe, click that notification bell on YouTube if you're listening to this.
Tell me you love me.
Exactly.
Hey, what I'm getting at with that, and like I said, perfect segue. It's like we're getting to a point to where the international game, the international players are finally, getting love. Like those guys that I just mentioned, Giannis, Luka, Jokic, those guys are being voted in as starters in the All-Star game. Right. And it's no surprise. I definitely have my opinions about All-Star voting, but like I said, we're about to get into that. I feel like that's where we'll probably wrap up. I know we don't have too much after that, but we definitely got to touch on the whole All-Star situation. I'll quickly, just to get our opinions in, I'll quickly rattle off the starters in each conference, just so that we can go ahead and get those nailed out. Eventually we'll get to the reserves. I don't know, I might let you handle those. Either way, we'll get to them, but we'll knock out the starters, and then we'll discuss a little bit there, and then just keep it moving. So Eastern Conference, we have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, and we have the captain of the Eastern side, Giannis Antetokounmpo, which, for the record, I think is super cool, because we were just talking about the impact of the international game, and the leading vote getter in the Eastern Conference just happens to be, from Greece by way of Nigeria, which, shameless plug here, it doesn't do me any good. If y'all haven't yet, get on Disney Plus and watch Rise. It is an awesome film. It is a terrific film that shows literally the rise of Giannis and his brothers and what they went through growing up in Greece and what they did to get to where they are. It's an awesome film. So shout out to Giannis. But again, Giannis, KD, Kyrie, Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum. You got them in the East. Shane, I gotta hit you with something really quick. And yes, I'm gonna do this on our recording. I don't care how it sounds. I'm gonna do this real quick. This is what I was gonna tell you. Remember we were on the phone earlier, and wifey beeped in, and I had to click over, and I told you there was something funny I wanted to tell you. Mm-hmm. So I was listening to NBA radio the other day, and yes, I'm gonna mention names because eventually it'll make us as famous as I want to be. It was on my way to work in the morning, so I'm listening to Starting Lineup on NBA radio on Sirius XM. And yes, I just plugged y'all. So if you ever hear this, you better plug us too. That is the JWJ podcast. So Frank Isola makes a joke, and I did not see it coming, bro. I was dying. He was talking about the scuffle with Donovan Mitchell and and Dylan Brooks the other day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he says, he's like, yeah, so Donovan Mitchell gets into it with Dylan Brooks, and this happens, and da 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 da, and he sounds so serious the whole time. But then he comes out and he's like, I can't even lie though. Dylan Brooks did something in that scuffle that we've never seen happen before. And Scalabrini was like, what are you talking about? What happened? What did he do? He was like, somehow he made a grown man with high cheekbones and beautiful eyes look tougher than him. Bro, I almost had to pull over. I almost had to pull.
Damn. Damn, he went there.
Yes.
Damn. Damn.
Dude, I almost had to pull over. I was like, just because he said it, I felt okay saying it on this podcast.
Frank with the dub.
Yes, every now and then he's good for some clown.
Rare Frank.
And I was just like, oh no. Like he said, yeah. He was like, he managed to somehow make another man with high cheekbones and pretty eyes look tougher than him.
Damn.
I was like, you gotta be kidding me, bro.
Boom, roasted.
Yes.
We need the sound drop. That's when everybody should just mob him.
I'm done. Look, he's
that's hilarious.
All right.
That's too good.
So, let me get to the Western starters, man. Hold on.
I'm gonna let you compose yourself. I'll take it.
All right,
in the West, we got a lot of the usual suspects. We got LeBron as the team captain, 19-time All-Star, Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, and a surprise at starter, Zion Williamson of the New Orleans Pelicans.
Shane, that's exactly what I needed to stop laughing.
So like I said, a lot of the usual suspects there. Don't think with his recent injury, I don't think Steph is going to be there. So it'll be interesting to see who gets the nod there and who maybe gets a chance to come play in the game. There's a few snubs.
I have an opinion.
Could get in there.
Yeah, I have an opinion on a guy. Keep going.
Yeah, so like I said, that's pretty much the West. It'll be interesting. Like I said, without Steph, I don't think Steph is going to be there with the injury he suffered in the Mavericks game the other night.
Yeah, the knee injury.
It looked.
It didn't look good.
It didn't look good, but it didn't look like it would be something that would take him out. It looked like he just bumped knees. But it turns out there was some ligament tears and some stuff like that. That's probably going to cost him, 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. For a player his size, it didn't look very good. Like I feel like that would have been
see Steph get hurt like this every year.
Yeah, that would have been different if it was like a guard running into like a Giannis, or like a Jokic or something. Yeah. Like but the fact that the contact came to a guy like Steph, it didn't look good.
Yeah, I mean he's had all the problems with his ankles. He's had knee issues. Like
right.
It's just another one of those injuries that Steph gets pretty much every year, where it's a freak thing that looks routine and it costs him time. I mean, he had the separated shoulder that had him out for a while. He had the broken hand in the year that they were war machining.
I ain't gonna lie though. I mean, if we can be real though, like even after the shoulder issue, Can we all not be in agreement that Steph did low key look dope playing in the sleeve? Like
Yeah,
I
I
thought
think
it was pretty cool.
the left sleeve Steph is in the Hall of Fame, like along with
Oh yeah.
untucked jersey Kyrie, hoodie
Yeah.
Melo.
I was just about to say hoodie mellow.
Like, yeah.
Oh man.
Kobe jersey in the mouth, like, yeah.
Or
So
even
like
better, the rare time that we got the masked Kobe.
masked Kobe. Steph is about to be in there 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
The Ric Flair of the NBA, 2-time Hall of Famer. As
Look,
far as
Steph
you
about to be
got
on.
mouthpiece Steph,
Yeah, Steph.
and now you got left
Jordan,
sleeve Steph.
as long as Jordan Poole doesn't piss him off, and Steph decides to throw it. I mean,
Yeah. So
so
yeah. So
he'll
like
be in there. He'll be in there on some DDP. He'll be a two-time.
right. And
See, we're always gonna make wrestling references. I hope y'all understand this.
hope
I
y'all
hope
know we're huge wrestling fans. If we didn't decide to start a basketball podcast, we probably would start wrestling podcasts. So. But we talked about the starters, the reserves. We got the East. We got Bam Adebayo from the Miami Heat, Jaylen Brown from the Celtics, DeMar DeRozan from the Bulls, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Halliburton makes his first All-Star team. Eat that, Wally Zerbiak.
Wally
Jrue Holiday
Wally
and New York
Scissor.
Knicks big man Julius Randle.
Wally Scissor.
Yeah, and
And
then
then,
so that's the East reserves.
and
For
then
the
the West.
West,
I got you.
we got Paul George, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander from Oklahoma City Thunder. We got Jaren Jackson Jr. from the Memphis Grizzlies. Damian Lillard, Lauri Markkanen makes his first All-Star game from the Utah Jazz. Ja Morant and Domantas Sabonis from the upstart Sacramento Kings.
Mm-hmm.
So, James, with that being said, man, I know you mentioned Zion. So, go ahead. Let us have it.
Listen, I have a couple of issues with these rosters. I'll just start with the biggest one. And no, this is not me being biased. This is just me stating facts. I'm very, very annoyed with just how much the fan vote impacts everything. I understand. I get that the All-Star game, the whole idea is, we want to, reward the fans in a way. We want to make sure that the fans are entertained. Are you not entertained? We want to make sure that the fans are getting what they want. I get that. But it shouldn't be at the expense of other deserving players. Now, I say that to say this. Zion Williamson was voted in by the fans as a starter. I gotta go to my home squad to prove a point. Anthony Davis. Early on in the season, Anthony Davis was actually looked at as a potential MVP candidate. Okay. Follow me on this. Now, Anthony Davis has missed a lot of time due to injury. Totally understandable. I totally get that. Now, Anthony Davis has played in 30 games so far this season. The Lakers right now are 25-29. Let's do the math. That's what, 54 games. Anthony Davis has played in 30 of those. So all the time that he's missed, again, totally reasonable. But at the time that the starters were announced, Anthony Davis and Zion had played in the exact same number of games. Zion, since the starters were announced, he has not played. He hasn't played. So Anthony Davis at this point has actually played in one more game than Zion Williamson. But let's look at the numbers. Anthony Davis, if we look at points per game, Anthony Davis wins the battle 27.1 to 26 flat for Zion. Let's look at blocks. Anthony Davis is averaging 2 per game. Zion is averaging less than 1. Steals, Anthony Davis, 1.3. Zion, 1.1. Let's look at rebounds. Anthony Davis, 12 per game. Zion, 7. Free throw percentage. Anthony Davis, 83. Zion, 71. Field goal percentage and what is it? Field goal percentage and assists. The only categories where we're looking at an edge in Zion's favor. But they played the same amount of games. It annoys me, and I understand it's because of the fan vote. This game is for the fans. I get it. But where I get frustrated is now, if the fans, you miss all this time and the fans don't vote you in, all of a sudden you're left to the whim of the coaches voting you in as a reserve. And if you miss out, then it's like, it is what it is. Now, not even to throw anybody else under the bus, but we'll sit here and celebrate Zion being in, doing what he's doing. Jaren Jackson makes the game, and yes, I'm going to personally call him out. I don't care. It's his first All-Star game, so kudos to him. Jaren Jackson makes the game, which I felt was bound to happen because Memphis is near the top of the conference. I think if I recall, they're the 2 spot right now. So they were bound to have more than one All-Star. Honestly, you already know me. I'm still annoyed that Ja is a reserve as opposed to a starter. I'm like, come on now. But if it comes down to looking at reserves and we're going strictly off numbers, it still blows my mind that Jaren Jackson is a reserve and Anthony Davis is not. Like, the numbers that Anthony Davis is putting up right now are comparable to almost any starter in this All-Star game.
Right.
And it blows my mind that we can make an argument that he shouldn't have been a reserve because of games missed. But then he actually has at this point played one game more than one of the Western starters in Zion Williamson. And it's not a knock on Zion. I've been saying from day one, I think Zion, if he can overcome the injuries he's dealing with, he's going to go down as one of the legends of this game. I really believe that. I think he has a hell of a career ahead of him if he can overcome his injury issues with the lower body. However, when it comes to the All-Star game this year, there is no way that Zion should be a starter and Anthony Davis isn't. It to me is an absolute slap in the face. And
not even make the game at all.
Not make the game at all. That to me is absolutely ridiculous. ridiculous. And I'm gonna let you jump in a minute, Shane. I'm gonna just go to my Eastern Conference issue. We're looking at the reserves for the East. I'm going to New York. And we talked about this a little bit. I'm going to New York. Again, no knock on him. Former Laker. I love him. To me, I do feel like at a certain time, if we really want this game to be impactful and we really want to reward players for what they're doing, I can't. It at a certain point, it has to be more than numbers. And if I'm looking at somebody being an all-star from Madison Square Garden, to me, it's not Julius Randle, it's Jalen Brunson. What Jalen Brunson has done, he literally proved why he wanted more money as a Dallas Maverick. He proved his point in the first half of this season. Julius Randle has done his thing. Would Julius Randle be performing like this if Jalen wasn't there? It's a hypothetical question. If all of y'all listening right now are hearing this, it's a hypothetical question. We know the answer. Julius Randle would not be performing like this if Jalen Brunson wasn't there, because he would be the focus. Not only has Jalen Brunson taken the focus off of Julius Randle and allowed him to perform the way that he has, Jalen Brunson is still shining with all of that. So my two big issues right now with the game are Jalen Brunson not being in the game and Anthony Davis not being in the game. Those are my two major issues. Everything else, I honestly feel okay with. I'm outside of no knock on him again. I am still kind of, whatever about the whole DeMar DeRozan, but I'll get to that later, because it's just a little too much going on, and I feel like we've been snapping for a while. Oh, and see, I didn't even mention Bam Adebayo. So many things I can. You know what, Bam, DeMar, I don't care what nobody says. Y'all don't deserve to be here either. But that's just me, Shane.
Well, I guess I don't know. I guess there's a precedent being set in this year's All-Star game. If you're gonna put Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in there, I guess you got to put DeMar in there. Or you got to put Bam.
You got a point. You got a point.
The Miami Heat have been lukewarm at best, and I guess you go with the best player on that team. I mean, they haven't completely tanked, but Miami, given where they've been kind of I don't know. It's kind of mysterious how they've just managed to fall off the map entirely.
Look, I hate to do it, and I'm sure he's gonna listen to it at some point. Hey, bro, I love you, but I'm gonna shout out my dude. I'm gonna shout out my boy Jeff. I love you to death, man. He's probably the most diehard Miami fan I know, but the fact that you expected a 6 seed Miami Heat to have more than one All-Star, we were talking the fact that Jimmy could possibly be one. Well, I say you. Come on, man. Come on, dog. Look, I'm gonna hit you with the Ed Lover, man. Come on, son.
Two snubs. I mean, we mentioned Jalen Brunson. I agree with you on that. I do think Jalen got snubbed. Now, granted, Julius Randle's playing great. I probably would have put Brunson in over DeMar DeRozan. Another guy, two guys really. One guy, he's the first player to have the averages that he has to miss the All-Star game. Pascal Siakam.
Okay.
This was one of the darlings of the league. Like when Toronto won the title, he was the next guy as far as like, okay, he's an up and coming young player. He's great. But but he's averaging like 23, 8, and 5.
Right.
And he's the first player, I think, with those averages to miss the All-Star game, if I'm not mistaken. Granted, Toronto's in the tank. They are bad.
Yeah, but the funny thing is like you just said, like, you know, we're looking at certain players that made it even though their team is bad. I'm looking at the standings right now. Toronto is 25 and 30.
Mm-hmm.
Portland is 26 and 27. Dame is in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma City is 25 and 27.
Yeah.
Shai Gilgeous is in the game.
Yeah. So but like I said, I mean, that speaks to how, like, pretty much every, like, I don't think this is one year where, like, there's no team necessarily. Like, there's teams in the West that are, you know, have some separation over the rest of the pack. But like, this is one of those years, and I think the last couple years have kind of been like that, where it's like there's no, like, head and shoulders team that's just better than everybody. You just got to hope for health and getting hot at the right time. And that's going to open you up to all kinds of, like, detractors. Oh, well, you know, they didn't have to go through so-and-so. Well, you got to play who's in front of you. So
That's
a
it.
lot of it is luck. A
That's
lot
it.
of it is just being hot at the right time. That's what it is. And so this is the year, like we talked about earlier, like, you mess around and make a move, you get a big name player, or you get somebody that makes your team that much better. It could be the difference between you being 11 seed in your conference and being in the top 4. It's that tight. So, like, this All-Star game is kind of, you know, these rosters are kind of, you know, indicative of that. Now, going back to what I was talking about the snubs, I mentioned Brunson, I mentioned Siakam. Man, whew. Now, granted, people feel a way about this dude. It is weird as hell to me that we're about to have this All-Star game and James Harden ain't gonna be there. That is crazy to me.
I'm with you.
I don't think people are talking about that enough. And granted, James Harden's had a great year for Philly.
Yeah.
He's been out of the headlines. He's showed up. He's played. He's averaging, I think, a double-double. I think he's averaging like 22 and 12 or something like that. James Harden not in the All-Star game, that's something.
Yeah.
James Harden's also not been, I mean, this is a guy that won MVP a few years ago. I think James Harden is suffering from, I think he's being penalized, maybe not openly, but I think he's being penalized as having a style of game that has proven somewhat detrimental to the game. I think he's
I
being
mean,
punished for that. I think, like,
I don't think it's necessarily a matter of punishment as much as it is the league. Like, the league is going to look elsewhere for what they want. I know that sounds weird, but like, if we look at the guys that did make the team, like, we look at the guards that did make the team. Kyrie, Donovan Mitchell, you know, DeMar is kind of fringe. Tyrese Halliburton, Drew Holiday. The guys, say it again.
And Jaylen Brown.
Well, yeah, I Jaylen Brown is another one that's kind of fringe. Like, I look at him and DeMar as kind of those fringe guys, because I don't know. It's funny to me. Like, when I look at both of them, I know they both are listed as guards, but I look at both of them kind of, when I think of both of them, I immediately think playing the 3 as opposed to playing the 2, just because they're a little, like, bigger guys.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like at their size, they naturally play more to the 3 than as an actual guard. That's just me, but I mean, you feel me? Like, so I'm looking at these guys that made the team in the East, and if you look at them, with, like, again, with the exception of Jaylen and DeMar, I feel like all of those other guards kind of play the same way, and I can feel what you're saying, in that none of them play the way that James Harden does. So it's the whole starting thing. I feel like when it comes to the East, they absolutely got it right as far as the guards. I think that Kyrie, Donovan Mitchell, those were a lock. Donovan Mitchell is having arguably the best season of his career.
71.
Listen, and did it, and maybe it's Maybelline. I don't know, but Donovan Mitchell showing out. Kyrie's doing his thing. Like, I didn't even realize it, but both Kyrie and Donovan Mitchell are averaging 27 a night right now. I honestly did not realize that. Jason Tatum doing his thing. Jason Tatum is kind of on the flip side for me. They have him listed as a forward, and I'm like, absolutely. I'm like, don't even list that he's a forward / guard. I'm like, I never see this man as a guard. I don't.
Right. I just think like James Harden, it's weird that the All-Star game is built for guys like James Harden. It's just weird to see him not make it. Now, I'm not going to lobby. I think it is a little bit disrespectful that he didn't make it. But I could see why it would be like, come on. Bam Adebayo.
No, I'm with you.
Be in there.
So here's
DeMar DeRozan's going to be in there and James Harden's not. Like, that's kind of weird, bro. That's tough. That's tough to handle as a fan. Like, if I'm a fan and I'm just looking at guys I'd want to see in the All-Star game, I'm voting for James Harden 10 times out of 10 over DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that DeMar is any less deserving or whatever. I'm just saying if it was up to me, James Harden would be in the All-Star game. I just feel like he's still good enough to be in the All-Star game.
Yeah.
And in the West, obviously AD is a snub. I feel like he should be in the game. But I feel like his reputation is taking such a hit as far as not being available. It's almost like people probably forget he's even in LA at times. Like,
well, see, and like I said, that's the thing that annoys me though, is like we can't sit here and knock his availability when we have Zion as a starter and
Anthony he's equally unavailable.
Anthony Davis at this point has actually played more games than him.
Right. And I look at the reserves on that side. I look at Jaren Jackson Jr. I guess that's their version of Bam Adebayo getting in.
Yeah.
But Paul George is Paul George. He's in there. I ain't got a problem with that. He's one of my favorite players in the league. SGA is a baller. If he was playing anywhere else, people would understand just how much of a baller that dude is.
Paul George is still a sympathy vote, but keep going.
Dame's gonna be there. Ja's gonna be there. Domantas Sabonis getting there now.
I'm okay with
interesting because the Sacramento Kings are balling. I think they're still a 3 seed in the West.
And that's why I feel like he had to get in. It was either going to be him or De'Aaron Fox.
Now, how do you feel? That was the guy I was thinking about getting snubbed. Now, what do you feel about De'Aaron Fox not making it?
My only thing is I'm looking at, because I know there's restrictions like based on the like position wise, like who gets in on the reserves too. My only thing with that, I do agree that we could look at De'Aaron Fox as a snub. My only retort to that though is, who do we take off? Because in order to put him in, if we're looking at it, so we have what, as far as the guards go on the reserves, we have Shai Gilgeous, we have Lillard and Ja.
Mm-hmm.
Who do we take off to put Dame in? Like who?
I think
where does the switch come in to put De'Aaron Fox in?
Yeah, I think of those guys, like this is one where like, yeah, he's a snub, but it's also one of them deals. It's like, well, it's not one of those. It's not a snub to the level of James Harden or Anthony Davis. it's a
Mhm.
snub, as in, well, not everybody can get in.
Mhm.
I think
'Cause I'm like, to me, the like it's really tough, honestly, if you look at the guards.
right
To me, if you look at the guards, it would have to come down to either Ja Morant or Dame.
now, here's a question that I think this is actually a viable thing. Steph probably likely missing that game.
That's gonna be that
I
spot is gonna be
wonder,
De'Aaron Fox.
I wonder if it'll be De'Aaron Fox, or do they go with somebody we haven't thought of?
Like who?
Like, do we go with somebody else from his team?
I don't think so.
Do you go with Klay Thompson?
No, I
Do
don't think
you?
that. No.
Here's another one that I think is interesting, but I'm not surprised at all.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, Devin Booker's been hurt, and so that's not going to
I
work for
wouldn't.
him.
Yeah, I was about to say I wouldn't go Devin
Chris
Booker
Paul
either.
not making it is expected at this point, but
Right.
like of those guys that still make it based on like name and all that, it's
Yeah.
interesting that he didn't make it.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm not surprised he didn't make it.
No, because the team is not doing that great right now.
Right.
I mean, they're
Phoenix
like
is what, sixth in the West,
Phoenix has been struggling. They're fifth.
fifth in the West. So
No, they're actually no, they're actually a game ahead of y'all, bro.
yeah, so
Y'all are sixth.
no Phoenix Suns made the All-Star team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I like I said, De'Aaron Fox may be that guy that gets the call.
I think it's absolutely going to be De'Aaron.
And I think honestly, what's going to end up happening, Steph is probably definitely not going to play that game.
No, he's not going to.
I think Ja is going to get the start, and I think De'Aaron Fox is going to be in there as a reserve.
I'm with that.
If Zion can't play,
Mm.
which is a possibility, if Zion can't play, Anthony Davis should get that spot.
Agreed.
Now, if you go, okay, it has to be a reserve that gets bumped up to the starter. Okay, then I guess you put, I guess you'd move Sabonis up in there. Either that or Jaren Jackson.
You know
but
what?
I think AD definitely deserves to be there.
You
if
know what?
Zion can't play.
You know what? I ain't even gonna lie. I would be a jerk just based off the unexpected nature of it. To me, if Zion couldn't play, I would narrow it down to Sabonis and Markkanen.
Yeah. I mean, I ain't got a problem with that either.
I would narrow it down to Sabonis and Markkanen. Jaren Jackson wouldn't be in there for me. Jaren Jackson.
I would go Sabonis based on the principle of his team is pretty good right now.
Yeah. It's like I would be torn. Like, I think I would lean Sabonis for the same reason, like you said. I wouldn't be mad at Markkanen simply because his team is doing so many things that weren't expected of them right now.
Loving Lauri Markkanen right now.
Absolutely.
He's I saw somebody bring this up. I didn't bring this up, I swear. I'm not I'm probably the biggest Dirk fan, one of the biggest Dirk fans on the planet, right? I didn't say this. I actually was impressed that somebody remembered it and mentioned this on Twitter. Somebody said Lauri Markkanen is in his elbow pad Dirk phase. And I thought about it and I was like, yo, you nailed it. Because elbow pad Dirk, this would be Dirk from 2001 to 2003. Elbow pad Dirk, this was around the time where Dirk was like becoming like that guy in Dallas. Hadn't fully shed Finley and Nash yet, but he was definitely up next. And so so Markkanen's there. He's playing small forward for Utah, which Dirk was playing the 3 in Dallas around that time. I thought that was a damn good reference that they made on Twitter. I thought that was cool.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No,
so,
I mean, I like I said, I wouldn't be mad either way, Sabonis or Markkanen. I think either one of them would be a solid replacement at that starting spot. So right. I mean, I'd be cool either way. And you know I've got to be serious to actually be okay with giving some respect to a Sacramento King.
I think the statute of limitations is kind of up. Y'all, it's only been 21 years.
Only.
So,
No, shout out to Robert Ory,
it
man.
used to be a
That is
rivalry back then.
it
But
was.
but yeah, so one more thing and then we'll get out of here. Again, if you guys have made it this far,
Oh,
thank you for
man.
listening. We appreciate it. We're glad to be back. Obviously, life gets in the way, so if you guys are giving us a listen, we appreciate you for making us a part of your day. One last thing we got to get to. We just talked about the All-Star game. We got to talk about LeBron James.
Man, come on.
19 All-Star games. Dude's 38, year 20, balling. He is only 36 points away from passing the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Listen.
A record that I never thought would be broken.
Never.
And there's been a ton of great scorers that have got into the top 10, got into the top 3 in Kobe's case, LeBron's case. No, I never thought anybody would break this record. And LeBron's 36 points away.
And the scariest thing about it, he's 36 points away, right?
Right.
This dude is also 4th in all-time assists.
Yep.
Terrifying. Like, I don't want to
be up there in steals at some point too.
Yeah, I'm like, anybody that wants to keep hating on this dude, I cannot wait to see what you have to say when this dude is gone. I can't wait. I can't wait.
It's because the thing is, it's like, if you want to pull numbers, it's like the numbers are just gaudy and ridiculous. Because, like, obviously everybody wants to look at the championship total and everybody wants to compare him to Jordan. It's like, all right, it's like not everybody can win 6 titles.
Right.
But how many people can win 4?
Right.
How many people can put themselves in a position to play in as many finals as LeBron has played in, to be playing for the title?
Right.
There's that.
I think rounding out the 5 when it comes to the assists, it was I know it's Stockton, Jason Kidd,
Mark Jackson,
Steve Nash. LeBron James has more titles than all of them put together.
Right.
Matter of fact, the only one of them outside of LeBron that has anything is the 1 ring from Jason Kidd.
Yep. And then, another guy that's in that top 10, I think Magic's top 10, right? In assists?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Magic is up there.
Well, we know Magic got 5.
Right.
So
but then it still takes a top 10 to hit that.
Right. And it's like there's a pantheon of greatness that he's in, and it's a rarefied air. And it's been amazing to watch this dude do what he does and have the longevity that he has. Because you would think, given LeBron's physicality, his athleticism, his style of play, you would think he would not be playing right now.
So we were a little on the outside. Mark Jackson is actually number 6.
Okay, yeah.
So the top 5 is Stockton, Kidd, Chris Paul, LeBron, and Steve Nash.
Yeah.
Then rounding out the top 10, we have Mark Jackson, Magic, Oscar, Isaiah, and Westbrook.
Yeah.
Either way, I'm like, come on,
yeah.
LeBron.
And bro. He's up there. He's up there in 3-pointers made.
Yeah.
He's been around. He's up there in the triple-double list.
Right.
So he's accomplished so much statistically, in the consistency in which he's done it. That's the only way that you get to where he gets to, is the consistency. A lot of people don't think of LeBron as a scorer. Even he doesn't think of himself as like a scorer. He's more of a pass first guy. But when you consistently, can put out 25, 27 a night, eventually that adds up. And that's where we are now.
You gonna miss me when I'm gone.
Right. And it's like there's never been a player like Kareem is like the only one. And I mean, even Kareem at LeBron's age wasn't doing it at the rate LeBron is.
Exactly.
Granted, it's a different position, different era, whatever, but nobody's done what LeBron's doing in year 20 at age 38. I mean, he's got a lot of mileage. We're not talking about gold medal. We're talking about deep playoff runs. We're talking about gold medals. We're talking about all that stuff.
10 finals in a row.
Exactly. So the fact that this dude is 36 points away from the all-time scoring record
at 38 years old.
At 38, given everything,
20
all
years.
the mileage on his body.
Right.
You don't get that without hard work, consistency, and availability. Like, think about it. He just started getting banged up in LA.
Right.
Like, he's never really had any major injuries. I mean, he had his back problem when he was, I think, what was it, Miami or was it Cleveland when he came back second time?
Nah, I'm pretty sure it was Cleveland.
Yeah, so that's like his back thing. He had the groin issue when he got to LA. I think he had a broken hand or something in his early career in Cleveland. Like, other than that, dude's always there. And not only is he always there, he's productive. He's probably the most productive NBA player of all time.
Yeah.
Think about it. Points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. Like, he's there in all those categories somewhere.
Right.
So it's like, say what you want about the dude, and to be honest, none of that really means much because you don't even know that dude. It's like if we talking ball, greatest of all time. Nobody's been as widely productive statistically while also having team success, playing for titles, and just winning. Dude's the most consistent, productive, efficient, like whatever you want to name in terms of superlative statistically, that dude's an anomaly. Yeah. That dude is one of one. Yeah. Jordan was great, and everybody has their errors about who was who.
Of course.
But if we look at this dude's about to get this record. Kareem had 6 MVPs, bro.
Yeah.
And we sitting here looking at it. We talked about voter fatigue and all this. LeBron, honestly, man, if we're being real about it, LeBron could probably have 7 MVPs. Easily. At least.
Easily.
So I just think like it's long overdue for dude to be getting his flowers. Yeah. He's been that dude that y'all love to hate, but it's like people love to hate LeBron, but at the same time, like a lot of that hate is because he's great.
You gonna miss me when I'm gone.
Cause like there's a lot of players that come through like and the numbers will hold up. You don't get to where LeBron is about to get to without being consistent and being available and healthy. That's an underrated part of it. Like not missing games.
And when another thing that speaks to greatness is when the media constantly talks about things that he won't do. Like the last week or so, as he's coming in on this scoring record, a lot of the radio outlets on NBA radio on Sirius XM, yes, I'm plugging y'all again, and this time it's not for a good thing. A lot of the time, what they've been talking about is, oh, he's closing in on the scoring record, but he'll never catch John Stockton. Who the hell will? Who's going to?
So now it's he's got all these numbers, but he can't touch the number.
Right. Come on now.
Come on. Like the fact that you're having to move the goalposts so many times.
Exactly.
To try and knock this man down.
Exactly.
It's like, and I mean, in a couple little tangents and we'll be done, but the whole play last week where he goes to the basket, Jason Tatum hits his arm, he doesn't get the call. Now, granted, probably would have won the game there.
Yeah.
Gets fouled, they don't call it. He loses his mind.
Right.
Now, LA, what LA eventually they lost that game, right?
Yeah, lost it.
Okay, but it went to overtime, whatever. That ain't the point. The problem is, so everybody's like, oh, he's just crying and this and this. It's like, okay, but what was the rap for like most of his career that everybody wanted to push? Oh, when the game is tight, he doesn't go to the rim.
Yeah.
Then he goes to the rim, gets blatantly hacked, and doesn't get the call.
Right.
Then it's oh, he I don't know.
He's overreacting. He needs to calm down.
He's overreacting, and it's also oh well, it's LeBron. He can play through that.
Yep.
He was hit across the arm though.
No matter what he does, he doesn't.
Right. And so it's like he can't hit the big shot. He's hit playoff game winners. He's not a clutch player. He's had 45, 15, and 7 in playoff games. Like he's averaged 40 in playoff series. He's been the leading scorer for both teams in said NBA Finals game series. So everything that everybody's ever said he couldn't do, he's gone out and done. And I've said it the whole time I've watched LeBron since I was 15. Like LeBron is the only player I know of in the league where whatever you need on a given night, you could ask of him and it wouldn't be a stretch.
Yeah.
If you needed 50, he could get you 50. If you needed 15, 20 rebounds, he could probably get you close to 20 rebounds. If you needed 10 assists, 12 assists, he could get you that.
Yeah.
He's the only player consistently that's been able to produce no matter what. And it's like, it's different stuff. He's probably, we talked about this the other day about what players like to have the most like 9 assist missed triple doubles. I'm sure LeBron's like tops on that.
Got it.
People talking about Luka too, about that too. So like, long story short, LeBron's about to pass Kareem. I'm glad that, you know, we're about to see this. It could be one game. They got OKC. What was the second game?
They got Milwaukee on Thursday.
They got Milwaukee on Thursday.
So it's Oklahoma City tomorrow. Well, technically later today.
Yeah. So we could either see that in Oklahoma City or we could see that in a combination of OKC and Milwaukee.
I'm putting my money on Thursday in Milwaukee, which it's funny. Oh my goodness, this keeps dragging out. I'm trying to shut up, but there's a combination of funny things that I got from this. So one, Milwaukee is just supremely poetic because that's where Kareem started his career.
Right.
But on the flip side, I think it's hilarious because it can go into the whole like it can go into a whole debate about the whole like load management thing where we talked about a while back, like oh, you know, like so many media outlets are like, oh, fans should be like checking the schedule and don't buy tickets on back-to-backs and this and that. Have you seen that tickets to the game tomorrow night have gone for over like 75 grand?
Whoa.
Are y'all gonna repay those people that are paying to see LeBron break that record if he doesn't break it tomorrow? Right. If you're not gonna, in a nutshell, my whole rant with that, if you're not gonna sit here and reimburse those people and you're like, oh, that's a risk you take, like you feel some kind of way about, oh, you do this and you do that, like understand if you feel some kind of way about those people spending 75 grand, think about the people that are spending $150 that don't have it.
Right.
When it comes time to see somebody play in an opposite conference one time a year. That's a whole other load management situation. Like I said, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but if you hear me, you hear me. Like, oh, somebody's going to be upset over that 75 grand. Yeah, somebody else is going to be upset over $150 if they're only a teacher or if they only work somewhere where they don't have 75 grand to spend. Like, I'm not worried about you spending all that money. You know why? Because you could afford it.
One question.
And
this is just fun. We're gonna write this down for fun. All right, so you say Milwaukee, right?
Yeah.
All right, so if he's gonna break it in Milwaukee and he's got 2 games this week, he only needs 36.
Yeah.
How many points does he score in OKC, and how many does he score against Milwaukee?
I'm gonna say in the OKC game, he's gonna go for
36.
No. I'm gonna say in the OKC game, he goes for 28. I'm gonna say he goes for 28, and then he breaks the record in Milwaukee in the first quarter.
Okay.
That's where I'm at.
I'm gonna say I was torn because I was like, he might just go ahead and get 36 against OKC because I mean, who they got checking him?
Yeah.
I think the bulk of it, I'm with you. I think the bulk of it goes against OKC. I think he scores. I'm gonna say he scores. He's gonna hit OKC for 29.
Okay.
I think he's gonna get 29 against OKC, and then he's gonna get the record in Milwaukee probably first quarter. Yeah, that's gonna be my call. So you said 28.
I'm gonna say 28 and first quarter.
Yeah, we will revisit this on the next episode. Hopefully, we get a chance to record again this weekend.
Soon.
So yeah, fingers crossed. I know we've been kind of in and out, but like I said, I mean, we got busy lives, man. We got
y'all see how
y'all trying to raise them. So yeah,
y'all see how extensive this has been, man. Look. My little man just turned 3 years old on Saturday, bro. Like
happy birthday, Adley.
Yeah, man. Yeah, happy birthday to the young king. You know, he's 3 years old now, and the weekend before that, our little queen just hit 3 months. So I'm tired, y'all. Yeah. But guess what?
It's their world. We're just living in it.
Yeah, I'm tired, y'all. But guess what? I'm up right now with you because at the end of the day, we love y'all.
We do. And like I said before, if you guys have made it this far, thank you so much for making JWJ a part of your day. If you're not already, make sure you follow us, like, and subscribe on YouTube. Click that notification bell to be notified whenever we put out new content. We can be found on almost every platform. We're on Anchor, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and more. We also can be found on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can follow us at the JWJ Podcast. You can also follow us individually. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at It's a Thomas Thing. You can find James at Titletown's Mayor. That's TitleTownzMayor. If you have any questions or would like to add your 2 cents, shoot us an email at the JWJ Podcast at gmail.com for the chance to be included in a future episode. With that being said, until next time, thank you all for the support. Thank you for tuning in, lacing up and locking in. JWJ.